looking at $500 returns from each one of these trades, $500 dividend returns off of each one of these trades, and then the difference from selling the stocks, we would be looking at significantly larger gains. So I'm looking at, as often as possible, trying to add more to the stock. Now, for those of you who do not have it as a habit to trade, he said, 5K, let me borrow some. When friends think that you got money, man, they're like, hey, let me get some of that money out you. Don't got it. The thing is that when we start changing our spending habits, which we're going to be talking about how the big, beautiful bill has impacted our spending habits. When we start changing our spending habits, that's when we start seeing the ability to have more money available to put on our stock trades. And that gives us more and more ideas as to where we're going to put our money while our money is sitting there. Because if it's in the stocks and you don't need it, your day-to-day operation is running without it, then you can buy and sell and trade. And literally the day trading aspect of things is that you're every day looking at the stock, looking at where it is versus where it was, and then deciding when you're going to sell and when you're going to buy. You don't necessarily buy every day. You don't buy every hour on the hour. You're not selling every day of the week. It is specific stocks that you value, that you're going to buy when you see value in it, and you're going to sell when you see value in it, based on what we tell you guys. And this is how you're going to make more money doing this than what you're going to do with leaving it in the bank at 0.065%. That's literally the interest rate, 0.065%, which is less than 1%, which is like half a penny per dollar if you're leaving it in the bank. And stock options are running at around 8%. And some of them, if you're doing buy and holds on good stocks, you're going to see like 14, 15%. If you're doing buy and holds on Orchid Island and AGNC and other such real estate investment trusts, you're looking at an average of between 14 and 22% interest. But that's pretty much what you're getting. With the dividend rotation strategy over the course of a year, you're looking at an annual return of up to 168%, which is massive. And even if you miss a few, even if you get caught with a few losses, you're still looking at something closer to 75%, which you could be getting 3 times more off of the dividend rotation strategy if you do it wisely, than what you would be getting off of the the just doing a buy and hold. And that's why we talk about this. We talk about these things before we get things started with the topic of the day, so that you guys note to buy, sell, trade, come to us and listen to some buy, sell, trade information, and then follow along with other ways for you guys to make money for you. And this is one of the things that we all need, because we can flip money like this in the stock market at some point, depending on the quantity of capital that we save. You could potentially be dropping more money in your bank account from stock trading than what you would be making on your job. Like literally the trades that we were doing this past month alone, like he said, he just pulled back 3,000 in trades. Some people don't make 3,000 a month on their job. We did like 2 or 3 trades over the past 30 days and made more money off of those trades than what we did off of going to work every day. And so from rolling over and checking your social media app to rolling over and checking your stock trade is a complete life shift that puts you in a position where you start making a lot more money. Steve said, I need to be a millionaire so I can get tax breaks. Look, man, we're going to be talking about those tax breaks in just a second, because it is funny how they have, if you do buy and holds, they have tax exemptions on stock trades right now under Donald Trump that benefits you up to about $64,000 if you're single, claiming head of household, and $97,000 if you're married, which that's the only benefit of getting married. Otherwise, it's around about 34,000 or 40,000 if you claim single. I would never claim single. I would always claim head of household, because regardless of whether or not I've got a friend crashing at my house, if you're a parent and you got kids, If you babysit your friends' kids or your family members' kids, there's more than one person in your house, and government don't need to know who it is. The government just needs to know that you are the leader of the number of individuals that crash at your place, which makes you a head of household. You are the dominant income in your house, which makes you head of household, potentially with dependents off the record. And that head of household position gives you just a little bit more than filing single. So just note, I would always head of household my tax returns, and I would always head of household my W-2s of my job. Even if somebody else could beat me out, I would still head of household, because nobody else in my house is going to be smart enough to say, oh, I'm head of household too. Everybody else is like, well, I'm not married, so I'm single by default. So if everybody else in the house is single because they're not married, and I'm head of household because I'm not married, then guess what? Nobody's telling a false statement there. I am the head of this household, and everybody else is single. That makes it do what it do. But you get a little bit more tax breaks if you're head of household. You say, hey, but you tax free if you manga. Yes, you're tax free if you follow the manga plan. So if you're buying and holding, this is where stocks get sweet, because we're about to get into the big, beautiful bill. So make sure that you guys stay tuned to that. But if you're buying and holding, that is 60 days before the ex-dividend date and 60 days after the ex-dividend date, including the ex-dividend date, is a total of 121 days. Any stock that you're buying and holding for that 121 days falls into the tax exemption status, which means that you could potentially save taxes exempt on any money that's not moving in that realm. So you're going to buy it, you're going to leave it there, you're not going to fuck with it no more, right? That's the goal that we're aiming for with our dividend rotation strategy, is that we're going to move money around. We're going to increase the quantity of money that we can move around, but we're going to take a percentage of that money and we're going to park it in some of our quarterly stocks. Not our quarterly stocks, our monthly stocks. We want to park it in some of our monthly stocks. If we're parking it in some of our monthly stocks, we will see the ability to have that tax exemption on anything that's going to be hanging out for the rest of the year, because we're not going to move that monthly anymore, because it's going to give us a payout every month. The quarterlies are what we're doing a dividend rotation on. So that means that we'll be able to benefit from a lot of the money that we stop shifting around. And I would say that since we're trying to do massive growth, the first thing that we're going to be looking at is trying to take about half of our stock portfolio and putting it into a buy and hold with low costing stocks with high dividend payouts. And I gave you at least 3 of them in the list. I think the 3 of them are Arbor Realty, Orchid Island, and AGNC. Then the rest of the money, we divide it up into multiple sections and flip it through the dividend rotation strategy. If we've got about out of 6,000, if we park 3,000 and then we're moving the other 3,000 by spending 1,000 on each stock, or divide, if there's only 2 stocks that we're investing in, we divide 1,500 into each stock, then we'll be able to see a difference in our strategy, because if $1,000 is held up, the other $2,000 is still moving. If $1,500 is held up, the other $1,500 is still moving. And then once that first stack of $1,500 or $1,000 is held up, is now free, then we can throw it back into the rotation and make it do what it do. And that's the practice that we need to have, which will allow us to have more gains. You're not really focusing on what you could have had. Hypothetically, if everything always works in your favor, you're grateful for what you do get, as long as you're getting more than what you spent. So the first year in dividend rotation strategies, if you're not at a total loss, that is good. If you break even, or if you're making more, that is good. And then by year 2, you will have a good strategy. You'll have a good plan of action. This is an intermediate to advanced level trading strategy, which allows you to make money for you, so that you can start building that wealth a hell of a lot faster. And when you think about how every pack of cigarettes is 1 to 3 shares that you could have bought into, when you think about, every drink at the bar is 1 or 2 shares that you could have bought into, when you think about the night on the town at your expense, that could have been 20 or 30 shares, depending on the stock, you start making different decisions. It's not about somebody looking at you like, nah, I didn't do X, Y, and Z. You start thinking, he said, nah, this is the master class. Oh no, I hit the ground running with pro status, expert level trading strategies, because I went and I did the research on finding it. And then after I found it, I mastered the process on paper, and then I implemented the process, and then I started talking to you guys about the process. So this was something, ladies, special shout out. Female came up with the this trading strategy, and men are using it. One of very few things that was created by a woman, but the men are using it, and the men are making money, make money for them. So we value women. It's just that we need the women to step it up. So about this big, beautiful bill, though, this bill, like Stephen told us about this last week, and this isn't a what if. This bill that just happened, it's a new reality. And on today's show, we're going to break down the 5 most critical changes from this landmark law that will impact your money for decades. And this is crazy because he put this into effect where some of these things are going to expire. You said worst hill in history. Look, it is. And for broke folks, it isn't. But we're about to go into how this is going to be crazy, because it does immediate gratification for the average American, but it also has long-term negative effects. But the long-term negative effects are looking at about 10 to 15 years down the line, maybe 20 years down the line. And you have to remember, Donald Trump wrote this bill. That man is almost 80 years old. He is not going to live long enough to see the negative impacts of this bill on the economy. You and I are still going to be here for another 30 or 40 years, 50 years if we're lucky. We're going to see the negative impacts of this bill. That man is not going to live long enough to see if he's got enough good health in him to do a second term after this term, because I do believe that they started talking about presidents going forward are capable of doing 3 terms in a lifetime. If he does another term and lives past his next 4 years without dying of old age, this isn't talking about assassinations, just live past that, the old retiring at 12 years of presidency with no assassination and living a full life and then passing over, it would still be 6 years after his second term before we see the shit hit the fan. So for the remainder of his life, he can smile like, yeah, I fucked the system up, but everybody's happy about it, right? He's doing anything he can before he dies. You damn right. He's gonna go in the history books and push Martin Luther King to the left. I'm not gonna lie. This bill fundamentally changes who gets a tax break and who pays for it. And it all comes with a devastating catch that could leave millions of Americans on shakier ground than ever before. And let's be real for a second. For millions of Americans, whether you're raising a family, living in a fixed income, or working an hourly job, financial stability feels like it's a distant dream. And you try to save for retirement only to see Social Security benefits taxed. You raise your kids, but your costs keep raising faster than your paycheck does. So you work every extra shift you can get only to see huge chunks of that hard-earned money disappear. And y'all know what I'm talking about, because for decades, that system has felt rigid against the very people who keep our economy running. And we've all done this before. Stephen said he's going to be the new Joe Biden. Hey, as long as he ain't falling down the stairs, bro, he knew how to push that button and nuke them folks. As long as he ain't falling down the stairs. walking in the wrong direction. Senile don't always happen to all of us. Some of us are nimble in our older years, because Trump is a billionaire. Biden was not a billionaire. Biden might have had some of that Obamacare taking care of him. That's why he ain't have his coherentness going. Special shout out to the Biden administration. One of the things that we used to experience when we would go into overtime, because we would go into overtime, we would get time and a half, which would boost our pay scale into a higher tax bracket. By boosting our pay scale into a higher tax bracket, we would see higher taxation on overtime hours than what we would see on regular time hours, which sucked. You would have to work about 10 hours of overtime before you would experience extra cash on your check for overtime. That first 5 hours of overtime was eaten up with taxes. You didn't feel it at all. If you worked 45 hours a week, you'd be pissed off because you would have the same size paycheck that you had when you worked 40 hours a week. But if you work 50 or 60 hours a week or 65 hours a week, you started seeing double the paycheck that you were seeing when you wasn't working overtime. So you just like live with, nah, boss, I got to do 10 hours a day, 6 days a week. I got to do it. Special shout out to Ruderus. My man, I haven't seen you in a while. We probably got to start up another chess game. Been getting rusty. What's up? Steven said Biden ain't do anything that why I like him. Biden did do some stuff. Biden had them pride parades. Biden had the first female, wasn't it the first female vice president that was out there? Steven said, what's up, Ruderus? Biden had that first female vice president scenario where she was complaining about spending money on the plane instead of her waiting until she got off the damn plane before she spent some damn money, stuff like that. He said, I'm so close to 500 subs, bro. Only 4 subs. I will find your page and I will hit you with some subs. I can't get you a lot of them. I'll give you one more. I'll subscribe to your channel. I'll find you and I'll subscribe to your channel. We got to get you right there to the 1,000 so that you can start live streaming your chess games. That'll be good. Make you some money, youngin. What else did Biden do? Biden was part of the scenario where the raises started happening for the veterans and Social Security disability. That you're welcome anytime. You're welcome. That helped a lot of people who are on a fixed income, a true fixed income, because I call people who work from check to check on a fixed income, because while it's a fluctuating income, if you're going to work the same quantity of hours every week, every month, every year, your paycheck is going to be around about the same. And it does not go up because you don't get raises that much. And because you don't get you get raised like once every 5 years or so. Once you start peaking on your hourly wage, and then the next step is to get promoted to a salary job. When you're making top dollar on hourly wage, you don't see yourself getting an increase in pay. So the only thing that you see with your not so fixed schedule, fixed pay scenario is you can make less than that sometimes when they're doing caps on overtime, or when you come to work late or leave from work early, or if you're sick, missing days from work, then you don't make the amount of money that you're supposed to make. So it is not quite fixed, but I call it essentially fixed, because if you're working at peak performance, your hours are always the same. You're not going to make more than that until you see a raise. But inflation continues to increase while your paycheck doesn't. And that's why you stay in overtime. Most people are doing 15 to 30 hours of overtime. And we're going to be talking about how this big, beautiful bill impacts the overtime hours and how much you're going to get non-taxed on your overtime hours, because that's going to make a big difference. And we're going to be breaking down some of these benefits, and then breaking down some of the flaws in some of these benefits. Steve said, yeah, but it ain't helped my wallet. Yeah, I know this. The overtime does not help the wallet very much a lot of the times. And you're fucking exhausted with all the work that you're putting in. So the real villain has always been a tax code that feels disconnected from the reality of American life. You're asked to pay your fair share, allegedly, but it often feels like you're penalized for the very hustle you need to survive. So the easiest thing to do was just accept it. And that's what millions did, trapped in a system not built for them. I do want to point out, though, that the millions of people that are trapped in a system that wasn't built for them technically joined that free Caribbean cruise. They came over on the boat. Then when they got here, they realized that it wasn't a vacation, it was a trap, and they got stuck here. And now you just got to deal with it. Back then, we were considered tools. We weren't considered people. So when they made these laws, oh, all right, Stephen, I appreciate you coming in for as long as you could come in. And I'll definitely see you tomorrow when we start talking about the value of wealth of the average individual. So I appreciate you for stopping by. So note that in a lot of these situations, we had the laws were made when all men were created equal and the rest of us were tools. So now that we're all created equal, after 1950, when the laws of this country were made in the 1800s, just note the system wasn't made for us. We just have to adapt to it. Steven said, but I already know my wealthy trillionaire. Exactly. The trillionaire mentality. But do you know that the trillionaire mentality is going to be to only spend on what you need and only spend money on it when you're making 3 times more or more than 3 times more than what you're about to spend your money on. So you buy cars in cash, you don't finance them. You buy houses in cash, you don't finance them. If you mortgage the house, you're mortgaging the house to leverage towards buying another house so that you can have rental properties so that you can turn a profit off of the mortgage where the tenants in the second house is paying for the mortgage on the first house. You know, that type of mentality is when you're intentionally spending money. But if you're borrowing against a stone where you're financing your car, you shouldn't finance your car. You lease the car, you write that off against a business. But if you're not leasing your car, you're buying your car cash up front. You're not financing your car. If you can't afford to buy the car cash up front, buy a cheaper fucking car. Don't waste your money on buying a brand. Don't waste your money on buying new. Buy certified pre-owned, because it's the same car, 1 or 2 years older, with 3,000 to 5,000, sometimes 10,000 miles on it, and it is $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 cheaper out the door with a better warranty on it. Seemingly, they give you 125,000 mile bumper to bumper warranties. They give you 5 to 10 year warranties instead of the standard 60,000 mile 3-year warranty, which is less, because the car's got a few miles on it from test drives. Not so much. Special shout out to Bayside. Not so much. I got to throw this out there for Bayside real quick. Not so much the fact that the car is less valuable, because the car loses its value as soon as it's driven off the lot. Ask yourself, though, did it lose value when you drove it off the lot as the first owner of the vehicle, or did it lose value when the first test drive drove it off the lot? Think about that for a second. And then think about the fact that brand new first owner, as soon as your name went on the paper, it was already at 50% value before you bought the bitch. So why didn't you buy as the second owner or the first owner of the used vehicle? Or like if you pick up one of those loaner vehicles where the dealership lets people ride around in the car while their car is in the shop kind of thing, and you pick that up, still probably the first owner, but because it has like 5 or 10,000 miles on that bad boy, it's significantly cheaper. But right here, I had to throw a little bit of... Bayside's giving shout outs to Ruderus and Stevens. Appreciate you guys for stopping by. Bayside is one of those long standers. Hey, Bayside, did you know that Mr. Satellite has been live streaming lately? He just sent me a a link the other day, asking me to come to a show. So I got to figure out when the show goes live so that we can go check him out. Back to the topic at hand, because I know y'all came here to see what the hell's going on with this big beautiful bill, because this big beautiful bill, make sure y'all like and subscribe as y'all come through. This big beautiful bill is going to be ridiculous, and I know you're going to have some opinions about this, Bayside. Yeah, I didn't know either. So I thought it was fantastic. He said that he has streamed 1 or 2 times. He wanted us to come to the channel. I clicked the link. The show wasn't live when I went there. So I like, hey, what time are you going live? So I can see what I can do about dropping in. I also got to drop in on All-Star Izzy. So I have to find out when his show airs, but his show typically airs on Fridays. So I have to clear my schedule and try to bomb his show when he's live, so to show love on him, because he comes to my show when I'm live. So we're going to be trying to see if I can get out there and get All-Star Izzy as well, because, you know, content creators, we got to show support for one another, and when we're showing support for one another, that gives us a whole lot more traffic as far as like a viewership, because like people don't know that you exist until they see you. So if they see you in more than one location, you start becoming a household name. So Xander from This and That, I'm gonna have to get a This and That shirt so that when I pop in on other people's shows, I can wear my This and That shirt with my This and That logo on, so that people be like, oh yeah, that's that guy. You see the logo and they know that I'm here. They know where I came from when I start following other people's channels. But the problem with everybody accepting the income and just digging deep, the exact problem with that was huge and very controversial. And this bill was designed to tackle that. And since it was signed into law on July 4th, so while everybody was getting fined for popping fireworks in New York, this bill was going through. And the goal on the surface is simple: put more money directly into the pockets of families and seniors and workers. But like any law this big, it's complicated with clear winners and losers, and a lot of the fine print that will permanently change how our society, our social safety net, and other financial funds are negatively impacted. Well, then that's your problem, buddy, because if you came in about an hour ago when we were talking about all the stocks that were rising and falling and how to trade money so that we can make investments, then you could have gotten some stock options on that earlier. It is an interactive podcast, which means that since we talk about this, that, and everything in between, we do talk about a lot of other things. So you're saying that you gave me 5 minutes, and if you got your 5 minutes of fame because you were able to put your comment in, and I'm able to recognize your comment here, because as Bruce says, he's like, I gave you 5 minutes. You didn't talk about it. You didn't talk about it. You could throw some questions in about it. You really want to hear what's going on with the big, beautiful bill? You could come in and ask me some questions about that big, beautiful bill. Get to the point, Xander. Get to the point, right? This is not a 20-minute, this is a live podcast, buddy. This is not a 20-minute PSA. This is not a simple in and out, hit it and quit it kind of situation. This is a live discussion. So you can hang out and be part of the live discussion. You can wait for the nitty gritty, because as we crown this, you're going to be like, oh, snap. Or you can miss out on it, because if you decide to keep scrolling, we're probably still going to be talking about this in the next hour. And when you do end up hitting this a second time around, you're going to be like, oh, finally, you got to the point. You know, no show puts the meat and potatoes at the beginning of the show. They typically talk about the meat and potatoes at the beginning of the show, and then throughout the show, in order to captivate the audience, they touch on the meat and potatoes throughout the show, and then they finally get to it like halfway through or 3/4 of the way through, so that they can extend the viewership. That's what everybody does. Me, not so much so. I show respect to every person that pops in, and since Bayside and Steven and Ruderus have all came in before, and they were talking to me about this, that, and everything in between. I entertain their this, that, and everything in between. We do handle straw topics, but I do get back to the main point. So if you're really interested in the main point, you just got to stick around and interact with me. You know what? You can steer us back to the main point. This type of comment steers us back to the main point, but you could just like, hey, X, Y, and Z, whatever you heard about the bill, does it do this? And that will cause me to answer the question, which will lead me back to talking about it. That's one way to do it. But just saying that you lost interest because you were lingering, you were lurking, and not interactive. Hey, what can I say? Special shout out to Bruce for showing up, first time ever. But notice, Bruce, you're going to find that if you come here more often, you're going to see that throughout the show. We talk about a lot of things that are worth your while. But it's not going to be a linear track, because I have a lot of respect for the people who come into the comment section and make themselves known, even if they're a negative Nancy. So today we're going to cut through the spin to lay out the 5 biggest changes affecting your finances right now and what it all means for the future of the country. So the first pillar of this new law is a direct injection of cash and tax relief for 2 of the largest groups in America: families with children and seniors. So Bruce was pissed off because he allegedly gave me 5 minutes. He did not see what he wanted to see, and he walked out. And 45 seconds after that, we're talking about the meat and potatoes behind the bill. Whoo! If he don't feel stupid, go back and rewatch the show, Bruce. You feel a little bit more relief that you came back and took a look at it. First, for more than 40 million families with children, this bill makes the $2,000 child tax credit permanent. So if you got kids, if you got child support, note, y'all got that $2,000. For years, families had to worry that this credit, which was doubled by TCJA, and it would expire after 2025 if it wasn't extended. It has been permanently extended through the Trump administration. Now, here's the stay. That's what you're going to expect. It is here to stay. But there's more. From 2025 through 2028, the credit gets a temporary boost to $2,500. And after 2028, assuming that Trump is not in office, it may slide back down to $2,000, which is its base credit level, and will finally be adjusted for inflation. So it won't lose its value over time. The credit will increase itself enough to offset inflation, but not enough to say that it's going to be leaps and bounds. The refundable portion is also increased, meaning more money back for families, even if they don't owe any federal income tax. Now, this is going to be fantastic for individuals that are paying child support, because you can claim your child as a dependent due to the fact that you are paying child support. I would recommend that you keep your child support payments on record. That way, when you're filing your taxes, you can claim your child as a dependent. You can show the financial records that you're forwarding capital to the person that is caring for your child, and that should be able to aid you in your ability to get your portion of the tax credit. I do not have the ins and outs on how they divide that tax credit to the different adults that are both co-parenting the child, but for those individuals that are taking care of a child, whether they are in primary possession of the child or they're just financing the child's standard of living, the laws did get changed to where people that are paying child support benefit from the tax credits. Now, with a phase out that we're going to be experiencing starting at $200,000 for single filers and $400,000 for joint filers, meaning if you're making $200,000 a year and more, you're less likely to see this $2,000 or $2,500. And if you are $400,000 joint, you are less likely to see this $2,500, and it's going to keep dwindling down over time. The vast majority of American families will benefit, though. The majority of individuals that are making less than 100,000 a year, you guys are going to benefit from this. I'm going to be honest with you guys, financially, the poor class, less than 100,000 a year, you guys are going to be fantastic with this, which is probably more than 34 to 45% of Americans. Okay. The next law delivers. Oh no, yes. The next law delivers the landmark change for retirees. So we're going to start talking about the retirees. So Bruce, if you're not a retiree, don't worry, you didn't miss out on nothing. But if you're a retiree, we're going to talk about you right now. Under the new rules, most Americans will no longer owe federal income tax on their Social Security benefits if they were paying for Social Security benefits. I'm assuming that some individuals that were getting the disability from work income having to pay taxes on that, but individuals that were getting SSI from not having enough work credits did not necessarily have to file taxes, or if they did, they chose not to file taxes and just didn't claim it because they're told that Social Security isn't taxable. So this only benefits those individuals who claim Social Security on their taxes and end up getting taxed for it. So this is a monumental shift that particularly benefits retirees and lower income seniors who previously saw a chunk of their fixed income chewed back by the IRS. So for millions, this change will feel like a long overdue pay raise in their golden years, providing much needed financial breathing room, especially for those individuals who had to pay back because they got the overpayment. Jocelyn, special shout out to Jocelyn. I haven't seen her in a long time. Good to see you again, Jocelyn. Yeah, there's going to be like no one on Social Security, bro. They said that Social Security was going to disappear over time. But the way they're looking at it is that Social Security is, well, Social Security was back in the day supposed to be designed for the last handful of years of your life. Make sure that y'all like and subscribe as y'all are coming through here tonight. Social Security was not supposed to be for like 40 years. It was like the last 10 years of your life, maybe 20. You see what I'm saying? It was not designed for you to work, because remember, lifespans were shorter back in the day. You worked 20 years, you retired, you had like 10 or 20 years of life left, and then you were dead at the most. 10 years usually, but 10 to 15 years, something like that. So when you think about it, from legal working age, you had 35 years of life left, and then you died. That was the original system, right? Now, since the population has, she says the population was also smaller. You're right, the population was smaller, but the system isn't broken because the population is larger. The system is broken because the population is older. That's the problem. Now you've got to work 40 to 50 years and then retire at 65 or 72. And then you're going to get the last 20 years of your life from 65 to like 85, or from 72 to 92, that last 20 years there. And that's where the bubble pop is happening, because not too many people are working 40 years of their life. You've got some people that are working 10, 20 years, because in order for you to qualify for Social Security, you have to have the last 10 years consistent. You had a lot of people in the 90s and the 80s that were putting their kids on quote unquote crazy checks so that they did not have to pay for their kids, so that they could subsidize their income with their kids. Basically making their kids take a standardized test to show that their kids are incompetent, which I don't know why you would do that on purpose besides money, unless your kid is genuinely incompetent. But they would do that, permanently labeling these children as dependents, where these kids for the rest of their lives would be stuck on Section 8 and receiving a government check, never having to hold down a job. And that stayed a scenario until Bill Clinton started changing everything around. And the fact is that you've got millions of Americans getting free money undeservingly. And then you've got others that are deservingly getting it. You have the genuinely disabled, you have the genuinely incompetent, you have the genuinely physically injured off of unknown, unforeseen circumstances, whether it be on the job injuries, car crashes, life stories, stuff to that effect. Special shout out to Don Mills. He says social breath. So tell me exactly what's wrong about what's going on, because as Bayside said, it broke down. Years of your life is being broken down here. So there's a lot of things that change with that, but the model is still the same. They're taking a certain percentage out of everybody's paycheck. They're putting it into a pot that's supposed to go towards everybody's savings. And then when everybody retires, there's supposed to be money there. But then when you retire, depending on your tax credits and the lack thereof, there isn't enough money going around. You got some people who've been paying taxes since they were 15, and then they end up getting less than $800 a month from Social Security. And unless you have like veterans benefits on top of that, $800 a month is not going to cover your standard of living. It's not going to cover your rent by itself. You're going to need a second job. And then with Social Security, if you make more than $1,100 a month, they start taking money off of your Social Security. So that's one of the reasons why you see those elderly individuals at the Walmart, part-time workers, door greeters, because they really can't do shit, but they need money. So they'll stand at the door and tell you hi and shake your hand as you walk in the door. So special shout out to the door greeters at the Walmart. Be nice to the old people standing by the door, because they're there because they can't afford to stay at home. So show them some love. Don't be assholes to them because they just served their time in the workforce, and they retired from the workforce, and now they ass is a door greeter because the economy sucks. So show the old people some love. If y'all can't give an old person a hug when you're walking into Home Depot, Walmart, Lowe's, the old person standing at the door, be nice to the old folk, because they don't really need to be standing out there. They need to be at their damn house fishing somewhere in their backyard or some shit. But because the economy sucks, they got to be there. That's my take on it. Now, the second major part of this bill focuses on rewarding specific types of work and consumer choices, creating an instant pay raise for millions while encouraging domestic spending. So you guys are going to love this part. You're going to hate it too, but you're going to love this part. The first component tackles the volatile income of tipped and overtime workers. Now, there's an underlining scenario to this, and I'm going to talk to y'all about it real quick after I cover it. For years, every dollar earned in tips or overtime was treated by the IRS and as regular income. Right now, the law changed, and starting in this tax year of 2025, eligible workers can deduct up to $25,000 in tips from their federal tax income. For those of you who, that's right, special shout out to Lynn Dialis. It is a scam. They are getting you to tell them how much money you make. Read the details of the bill. Look, I'm getting there. Special shout out to Nikki. She said only the cash tips are exempt from taxation. So this is where the shit hits the fan, because I was just about to go there, but Nikki hit it before I could hit it. They ain't talking about them credit card tips. They talking about typically back in our day, the unreported cash tips that we used to not report because we didn't want to get taxed on it. That's what we're talking about, not the credit card tips. So they are saying that, as she's saying, up to $25,000 in cash tips. So no one reports the cash tips anyway. So you're going to feel, but if you wanted to, you could now claim your cash tips. And this is why they're doing it, because they want to know how much you're really making every year. They're not, they're not helping you by giving you a deduction. She got a journal up here. I got to keep up with Nikki because she got a lot to say here. Special shout out to Nikki, y'all. She said tips that are given off the credit card are still going to be taxed, which is why. Wait, no. which is the way everyone leaves tips. That, well, specifically because a lot more people are going through credit card purchases, Apple Pay, Google Pay these days. We have less individuals that are paying cash and more people that are paying card. Based on what's going on with this bill, knowing what Nikki is telling you guys, true statement, what she's telling you guys, true statement. When you go out to eat, start bringing cash with you so that you can pay for the bill on the card and leave a tip in cash, because you're giving this person more money if you give them a cash tip than what you do if you round up your credit card purchase and tip them on a credit card, because they're going to get taxed on a credit card. They're not going to get taxed on a cash tip. So cash is still a dominant source in the United States, and you got to respect that. You got to have yourself some discretionary cash. Typically, I would say close to $100 in cash needs to be in your purse or your wallet at all times, so that you have the capabilities to tip when you need to. Small bills now, not just a fucking $100 bill that you can't do shit with, like ones, fives, tens, so that you can leave a few dollars for the average individual when you're doing something for them. Show, because of people in hospitality, they deserve a little something. And if it's cash as a tip, it's not taxed up to $25,000, which isn't all the tips. It's just the cash area of tips. And I was about to get into where that's going to apply, the benefitters that are going to apply on that. Yeah, that they started off with that. And then it gets worse. Now, Joycelyn says most issues with SSI, disability, and Medicaid stem from technical errors or complex eligibility rules, not widespread abuse. Well, I was getting into the fact that not necessarily abuse, because the abuse that occurred back in the day when the system first started, they kind of put a stop to most of that, but it's more along the lines of the overpopulation of usage, because you have less people putting in and more people getting out of those programs. But there is, like you say, errors with the technical side of things, which is the reason why some people got overpaid. That Elon found all of those flaws. You've seen issues with the complex eligibility, where people who qualify do not get approved. They have a standard scenario of denying individuals, and then you got to fight for years to get on it. Then they got to get you back pay and all this other crap. It's crazy. But once you get on, this bill kind of makes things suck a little bit. Nigga says, I always leave my tips in cash. Yeah, I used to leave my tips in cash when I was walking around with cash on a regular basis. But then when I started living a life of having money coming in from different locations, and then I just swiped the card, because I didn't take time to go to the bank and pull money out. So instead, because I did not have cash circulating through me on a regular basis, I didn't start carrying cash. But looking at what I'm looking at now, I'm like, I need to go to the bank, go pull out some cash. That way I have. She said, I also carry cash for the homeless. Special shout out to Nikki for showing some cash for the homeless. I buy them stuff off the card, but I don't actually carry cash for them. I typically will buy them what they need before I give them what they need, or the things that we do at our nonprofit. Typically, we buy extra and bring it to them, so we kind of know some of the things that they need, and then we try to bring them some of the resources that they need to help them out. But that's just treating the symptoms. That's not treating the problem. In order to really resolve homelessness, a lot of individuals would have to contribute to those nonprofits that are building houses for the homeless and reincorporating the homeless people into society, so that they can go back to being self-sustainable, instead of just giving them a couple dollars for a pack of cigarettes, a bottle of beer, sandwich, clean outfit, or some cash to help them wash their clothes if they're able to keep their clothes. Because if they don't have a place to store their clothes are going to get damaged. You got to throw them away and go get new clothes. So they're always starting over, because they don't have a stable place to keep their stuff. And it makes more sense to stimulate that than you are to be able to treat the symptoms. Jocelyn says, I find it funny they talk about no cash on tips. I bet my house most of them don't tip anyway, bro. Jocelyn getting reckless. I'm more than positive that a lot of the wealthy individuals that do what they're doing don't tip. I bet they don't tip. And if they do, it's like a couple dollars, like $2-3. It's like keep the change. They put $100 down on a $98 bill, and they're like, keep the change. You're sitting over here thinking, oh, there's so much. Then when you count it up, you're like, son of a bitch. You be want to flip the table on them, but they already left. So Happy Hands, he says you're wrong. Cash tips means tips on credit cards, PayPal, tip sharing apps, but excluded gifts or goods. Look it up. It's all tips except goods. Okay. So Happy is saying that it's all tips. Well, I'm going to tell you that it's $25,000 worth of tips, and I can tell you that $25,000 worth of tips over the course of 12 months is a little over like $2,500 a month worth of tips. So regardless of if it's cash tips only or if it's all forms of tips, cash, credit cards, PayPal, Apple Pay, and other such tips, the fact is you're only going to be able to claim about $2,500 a month of that every month before the rest of it is still taxable. So be careful how much of it that you call yourself trying to claim as far as cash tips. But you know that if Happy Hands is correct about the credit card portion of things, if you're only claiming your credit card tips because that's the tips that they track and it's exempt, then that's more money in your pocket, because if you start reporting your cash tips, you're only going to get tax exempt on the 25 grand of it. So places like bartenders that are in positions that may not be getting paid by the hour, strip clubs, stuff like that, where you're mostly getting paid 98% of your income is cash tips, then, if you're making, $50,000 a year off of cash tips, where you're just getting paid, like your whole paycheck is tips, then half of your income would be tax exempt. That's a benefit. But for those individuals that have an hourly wage, and then you're looking at the extra $25,000 on top of your hourly wage, it's going to be tax exempt. That's a little bit of a benefit too. So if you're making $35,000 a year on your hourly wage, and then you're getting another $25,000 in cash tips, and that $25,000 in cash tips is tax exempt, that's still a little bit of a benefit too. I know, Jocelyn. I know. I fact check everything before I start talking about it. But if he believes that it's every form of tax, every form of tipping that goes out there, I'm not going to argue with him, but I am going to tell him that there's a cap on it. So it's not 100% of the money that you make in tips. It's only $25,000 of it. James said, why be positive when you can be Chicken Little? Well, I like to be positive because there's no reason to be negative. There's no reason to be negative. Your opinion is your opinion. My opinion is my opinion. My opinion comes from fact-checked information. Jocelyn's opinion is coming from fact-checked information. Nikki's opinion is coming from fact-checked information. Happy Hands says that his opinion is coming from facts. So, I let him. We all can't have the same facts and be on two different sides of the same conversation because somebody didn't get the correct information. But if you're doing a majority of common knowledge, 3 out of 4 people have the same information. So typically you want to do your research and confirm what's going on before you go any further with that. So let's see how Robert Wentworth came in, because he's got some insight here. He says, funny how the Dems are creating their own operation Mockingbird through social media. Interesting that they are using CIA methods to overthrow capitalism and freedom, which were used to defeat tyranny. Well, I don't see where the Dems are, which channels are doing that, because I haven't seen that information anywhere, but that's okay. I mean, I guess. And he says, Google it. Well, yeah, I Google everything. I tell you guys on a regular basis that, by all means, you don't necessarily have to believe what I tell you about what's going on the channel. I tell you what's going on based on the information that I found when I took the time to ask the Google lady. And I tell you guys to go back and ask the Google lady also. And once you figure out where you stand with the information that's coming about, then you make the best decisions for yourself. But because I'm talking about it, I'm raising awareness for your ability to go look at it and see how it directly impacts you. And then you'll be able to figure out what you want to do with things. Now, Robert says, you don't bring facts, you don't cite anything. Bro, what the fuck? Oh, so I've got to sit here and I've got to cite the bill exactly on the line, the paragraph, the subsection, so that I can give you the information based on my research, where it came from. And that is going to make you believe me any further, bro? Really? Citations are not Google. They are peer reviewed. First of all, that's stupid. The reason being is that where the fuck is the document going to be located at? Think about that for a second. The document, as it is written, the same way, if you want to find the Project 2025, it's 950 something pages worth of information. You're going to find it on Google. You download the PDF, you read the document, and then you see what the Republican plan has been since 2017. Now, you can get the document off of Google. You're not reading whatever is peer reviewed off of Google. But in order for you to get the hands on a document outside of walking to Washington and asking Donald Trump to hand it to you directly, as he tells the CIA, let him pass, he's got props. Outside of something like that happening, you're probably going to Google the original document from online, because anything that is made public is posted up on the Google search engine, which is one of the primary search engines that the internet utilizes. While we have Yahoo, Bing, and other such search engines, Google is the most dominantly used one to produce information, and then you're going to get your information from there. So if you want to know what the bill says, Google the bill, download the bill, read it in its entirety, interpret it how you feel. If you want to know what the laws are, Google the laws, Google the statutes, and then print them out. See what they say. He says this is the collegiate standard. Well, the collegiate standard still peer-reviewed. A peer-reviewed document, actually, you're taught in college the collegiate standard. And the collegiate standard in college is that if you don't go get the damn book or the original printed out document, then you would end up getting it sourced from a peer-reviewed website, right? Where the information was put up there, not Wikipedia, and then fact-checked by somebody else who co-signed on a situation, where it is typically accepted by everybody else. However, in order for it to be peer-reviewed, it would have to be posted up online for somebody else to look at it and then say, yes, those facts are legitimate. So in order for it to be the collegiate standard, you're going to have to peer review it yourself. Fact check it. Don't just go to one website. Go try to find the original document. Do a lot of reading. I'm one of many locations that's providing you information. So if you don't believe what I am saying, and I'm coming from the most neutral position, he says Google is biased and so is Fox News. I agree. But the law that is written is the law. It should have certain statutes that are attached to it. It should have certain sections of the bill that it's attached to. It's going to have hypothetical expectations as to how it's going to affect individuals. I'm covering the situation based on how you are going to be impacted by it. I'm not sitting over here barking laws like, oh yeah, well, X, Y, and Z law says that you're going to have a certain number of days in jail if you don't do X, Y, and Z. I'm telling you, hey, look at this. This shit right here is going to fuck with your money real quick. Let me show you how it's going to fuck with your money real quick. Now it is up to you to do the digging to go see exactly how much of what I'm telling you is true about how your money is about to get fucked up versus how much money you're actually going to see. That is the difference. So if you peer review the information, Steven, Bayside, Rev Champ 76, Usman, Mr. Satellite, and a plethora of other individuals that come to the show on a daily, weekly basis, fact checks my information and confirms that all the information that I bring to this podcast is definitely ratified. By all means, fact check my information. And then if you find something that's wrong, which you never will, then you can come back and show me where I was wrong. And if you can successfully show me where my facts were not correct, then I will be able to admit to you on this podcast for the first time ever in years that I was wrong. And so far, I've never been wrong. Matter of fact, I got to fact check the information that I get from you guys in the comment section and then come back and provide you with the detailed information as to why they were wrong, because you guys will go out there to the Google and go and get some sideways ass information, usually off of Reddit, and then come back and try to throw it in my face like you got this from the Encyclopedia Britannica. And then I got to correct you and tell you, no, the ins and outs of that particular statement is not exactly what we were talking about. And when you start putting in real world application, you start ending up in a different scenario, which is the conversation we had versus the information you drug into the conversation, trying to seem smart. I don't need you guys to jump on the conversation and try to pretend like you're smart. I need you guys to come onto the conversation and put your actual observations down as they are written. Let me go ahead and touch base on some of these comments here. GM said, he hasn't ended any wars. Of course not. Man ain't stopped no wars. He just blew up a bunch of people. You seen how he knocked down that big ass mountain, right? Tips and overtime is still taxed. Tips and overtime is taxed less. The Epstein list was never released. America, you have been lied to. Okay, I don't know what the Epstein list is. Okay, so he says peer-reviewed and research is the only thing that matters. No, research matters, and how you do research is that you're going to look into books and websites and articles and the original document. Since we're talking about legislation, you're looking at the original legislation, and the only way you're going to get your hands on the original legislation is either go down to your local Congress or get it offline. Most people put everything online. So if you go down to your local Congress, they're probably going to redirect you to their government website, which has the PDF file of the document online. And online is Google search. So you can ask Gemini, you can ask Siri, you can ask Alexa, you can ask Cortana to find a PDF for you and download it to your computer, and then you can take a look at it. He says books are not peer reviewed. You lost your mind. Books. A book is a published article, a published document from a reputable source most of the time when you're dealing with factual information. I don't know where you tell me that a book is not peer reviewed. Maybe look into what peer reviewed means. Nah, I don't need to look into that, but I appreciate your effort. Law is infected by both sides, and some laws are unconstitutional. There. Now, fact check. That's true. It is opinion based, just like law, which is why courts interpret law based on the law or statutes that is enacted. And actually, sometimes it is based off of which laws that are applying to the individual scenario, because you have every law that says that you can't do something in this country, there's a consequential law that also says that you can under certain circumstances. So depending on the details of the circumstances, you can either be not guilty because the law says that you can't be convicted for this particular action, or because you did one thing more than what you should have in that exact same scenario, there's another law that says that you're supposed to go to jail for that. So for example, self-defense, stand your ground laws allows you to act a certain way and use unspecified quantities of force. They have a law that's called preemptive self-defense of the home, which allows you to discharge firearms because it's an unspecified quantity of force. You can discharge firearms into your backyard and protect your household from intruders without them actually making it into your house. But you cannot cause harm to the other person. So while you can shoot the ground in the direction of the person that's coming towards your house, you can't shoot the person that has not made it into your house, because if you shoot the person that has not made it into your house, then you committed a crime. So yes, there is a law that says that you can do just about a lot of things in this country. And then there's a counter law that also says that you can't do anything in this country. And then you also have the Constitution that says if two laws conflict with one another, that they nullify in your favor, but they only nullify in your favor if you're not being arrested for doing one of them. Which means you have to have a good lawyer that shows that the counter law says that you're not supposed to be prosecuted for this. And you have to meet the full standards of the counter law. So he does make a good sense of that. And he says, if not, why do courts revisit what the law means? Well, the law is supposed to be black and white, but the law is also enforced by humans, and humans are emotional. And since humans are emotional, we have a scenario where individuals are not making the decision based on the way the law is written. They based on how they feel about the situation at hand, based on the information that is provided to them, which are the details, not necessarily the facts, the details of the situation that happens, based on how the police says the statement went, which isn't always true, versus what the accused party says the situation went, which is not always true either, because the person who's being accused is going to make it seem like they did nothing wrong, and the police are going to make it seem like they made a legitimate arrest, when the police don't always make legitimate arrests. So Robert says, are you taking quantitative or qualitative research? Seriously, bro? Well, quantitative research requires me to take a mass quantity of information and compile it together and then use it as alleged factual information. And qualitative research would mean that I would be taking a lesser quantity of more valuably sourced information, where it would be more peer reviewed, allegedly, or more widely accepted. Even if it's not legit, it's just more widely accepted sources. And I'm going to be honest with you, I do a full search as to wherever I can get whatever I'm getting. And then based off of the pros and cons of the information, I talk about everything that I can confirm, and then some of the things that may not be confirmed yet, where I can tell you that got to do a little bit more digging. But I try my best not to put information out there that I cannot validate. So I'm probably going to lean more towards quantitative information, because if you limit your sources to only sources that you approve of, then you're getting one-sided information. Getting a larger quantity of information, typically a larger quantity of information puts you in a position where the largest quantity of data that is saying the same thing is the closest thing to the truth than the lower quantity. So a lot like, here we go. Y'all, he didn't change the whole topic, because we was talking about the bill, and now he's sitting here trying to argue fact versus fiction here. I love this. He says books are not considered peer reviewed in college. I don't know what college you went to get that information. We agree on circumstances. We agree on a lot of things. Depends on the state. We agree on a lot of things, but we disagree on the fact that you do not find the fact that I'm bringing you information about the bill that just got passed on July 4th as valid factual information, because I'm not citing sources. So that's kind of throwing us through a loop here, because if I don't tell you who my source was, that does not mean I'm not telling you the truth. Actually, copyright and plagiarism is when I take facts from somebody else and I state them as my own facts, which without actually citing the source where I got the facts from, right? Doesn't mean that it's not a fact. It doesn't mean that it's not true. It just means that I did not have that original knowledge before I went looking for it. And whoever I got the knowledge from, I'm coining their statements and I'm using them as my own. That would be plagiarism. Now, we're not arguing whether or not I plagiarized the information that I'm giving you because I got it from somewhere else. What we're arguing about is whether or not what I'm telling you is true, is fact. And you're telling me that because I haven't cited who I got this information from, you're saying that I am not telling you facts. And that is wrong. You would have made more sense saying that I'm plagiarizing the factual information that I'm getting from the fact source, because I'm not citing the source, but just saying that my information is a fact because I didn't tell you who told me. Which reporters, and I'm not one, but reporters do not release their sources. They just tell you like it is based on the information that they gathered. and they can base it on a credible source because the source where they got it from probably has the facts. And he says validation is not fact. Both sides are important. Now you're splitting hairs. Because in order for me to understand exactly. He says define a book and then University of Michigan. Okay, well, at least he went to college in the United States. You are right. We're going to move on. We are going to move on. Reporters are notorious for lying, and so are politicians. So let's move on because RPS wants us to get down to the nitty gritty. We're going to get down to the nitty gritty. There's a separate new deduction for overtime pay, and that deduction is capped at $12,500 per year. So when you thought that you were going to be rolling in the dough with no overtime hours, they're basically giving you what, $1,000 a month worth of deductions towards overtime hours. So you're not really going to be rolling in it like none of your overtime is going to be capped. No. You're going to see it. These breaks are temporary and set to expire after 2028 unless extended. But for now, they offer a huge relief. So a bartender who earns $30,000 in tips could previously be taxed on all of it. Now they can deduct $25,000 of it, which is dramatically lowering their tax bill. And the income limits is set at $150,000 for individuals and $300,000 for joint filers. The other half of this is a new incentive to buy American. Hold on. He says, we agree both are notorious for lying and bring a better argument. Not bad, but shine up your game. I don't need to shine up my game, buddy, because at the end of the day, I'm not debating with you about whether or not I'm speaking fact. I'm telling you point blank period. We're going to get back to the main topic. You originally said that my information is not true, specifically because I didn't cite any sources. And I'm telling you that it is true. So since you're withdrawing, I appreciate your ability to troll the podcast. We're going to enjoy the rest of the afternoon. So thanks for coming, Robert Whitworth. When you find something else to argue about, I'll see you again. Because bottom line, if my facts are still facts, because I got it from a credible source and I'm not citing the source, then I'm more to the magnitude of plagiarizing factual information as opposed to providing false information. This is not The Onion. So you're welcome. Now, really, I want to step back real quick because before we start go, but I really want to go back to the scenario with the tax reliefs. Do I love JD Vance? Who is JD Vance? Special shout out to Serenity. I am not the type of podcast that is going to just take a name out of the blue and be like, oh, yes, I love him. Special shout out to so-and-so. Who the fuck is JD Vance? I don't know. I don't know him from a hole in the wall. JD Vance. Wait a minute. Are you talking about the same JD Vance that's like the vice president, the same JD Vance that has that book where he bought the largest majority of his book for himself in his city? The same JD Vance who had the charity that didn't do shit for nobody, but he was getting tax deductions off of that charity. The same JD Vance who wrote a book about a family feud between his family and somebody else's family where they were killing each other for over 100 years. And then for some reason, they just stopped after a while. That JD Vance? Oh, that guy? Oh, I ain't got nothing to say about him. He ain't did shit for me. No, not trolling. Honestly, it was a good debate, but citing is better. Have a great night. Good luck with your podcast. Oh, my podcast is fantastic. I actually have no, I would spend more time citing sources if I cited sources because I get them from a lot of locations. But if we're going to sit here on the podcast and determine that the source that I got the factual information from, you don't respect, then at the end of the day, you're dismissing factual information because you don't like the source of the information. It's not about where the information came from. It's about the fact that the information can impact you. And it is my desire, not my responsibility. It is my choice to explain to you and provide to you this information. And then it is your responsibility as an individual to fact check my information. So when I collected all this information, put it together, made a podcast, gave it to you, my information is, from my perspective, fact checked, and I'm providing you, to the best of my ability, all true statements. Now, you can double check what I tell you, and then you can show me that what I said is wrong. So just like you see the stocks that we are tracking going across the top of the screen, they are not in real time because I put those in before I aired the show. If the stocks change from the time I started the show until the time you're looking at that stock, those values are not the same. But that's the values when I was looking at them. And that is the values until I change them when I look at them again tomorrow. So you could look at those values at the top of the screen and say, oh, snap, those stocks were at those rates at some point today. Let me go look at the stock right now and see what it is. But those stocks are the highest paying dividend stocks that have the lowest buy-in values that we're utilizing in our dividend rotation strategy, which ultimately allows us to make a larger quantity of revenue off of a smaller quantity of capital. Now you can take the information off of those stocks and you can put them into your research, and then you can determine, I can find better stocks than this. Or you could say, no, I can't find better stocks than this. These stocks are, in fact, the highest paying dividend stocks with the lowest buy-in values that exist, but I prefer other stocks that have higher growth rates. It probably has a higher buy-in value, but it has higher growth rates. It depends on what you like to do. But I started with individuals who are starting from a maxed out income, and I'm showing them how they can take their capital, put it into a stock, get cash dividends back, add the cash dividends to the principal, reinvest the money back into the stock, and grow their portfolio faster than just doing a buy and hold and waiting on the growth. Also, individuals that are more often than not hard up on cash can put money into the stock and then get the money back off of the stock and use the dividends to cover the difference instead of putting into the stock and then having to sell and then go somewhere else with it and then lose out on the fact that they were saving. So I give them that information, and it's up to them for them to take it and go do what they want to do with it. Clark says, are you good enough for heaven? Ever lied or stolen before? Ever cursed? Ever lust or hated anywhere before? That's a good question. We broke God's laws, but Jesus paid our sins. I like that. Stocks are minimum. And manipulated by the market and those, the controller market, i.e. the politicians that you say lie, the lawmakers that take back the deals, and people that can have inside information before us. Thank you. He's going to bed. Have a good night. Even though the lawmakers are going to make decisions and those decisions are going to compromise our abilities to make, save, and invest, that's one of the things that I do on this podcast, is tell you guys how the decisions that are changing changes the way we decide to invest. It changes the way we decide to save our money. It changes the way we turn profits, and it changes the courses of the average everyday American. This is top-down situations, trickle-down situations, and not all the time, for those of us who aren't paying attention when we're scrolling through social media, do we pay attention to the fact that this kind of stuff actually does impact us. So while it just went into effect 3 days ago, 4 days ago now, while it just went into effect 4 days ago, the fact is we can start seeing immediate changes, because one of the things that I wanted to talk about with the overtime hours is that it is not going to not be taxed on your paycheck. So it's not like your paychecks are going to start seeing a larger quantity of payout. You're going to have a tax deduction. Okay. Which means that your overtime hours are going to be identified separately on your check stubs, on your W-2s. They're still going to take the taxes out of your checks. But the difference is that it's going to be a different location, where at the end of the year, when you're doing your filing, you can claim more money and get more money back. So your tax return is going to be larger. So just like the argument that we had with the taxation of tips, it is going to encourage more people to claim tips if their tips are not taxed, so that they can keep track of more of your money. They know how much Americans make. The more that an American gets off the incentive of paying for taxes. This is the funniest thing. Some people believe that you have to pay taxes or file for taxes, and others believe that you don't. Donald Trump has already made the factual statement that he has never had to file for or pay for taxes in his life. And ideally, because all of his money goes through trusts and big businesses and other such. So some other entity that is utilizing his wealth is going to end up filing for or claiming taxation on any profits that is earned by the wealth that he has. However, him individually, he's never had to necessarily do it. His accountant might do it, lawyer might do it, whatever. But him himself, he's never really had to do it. The thing is that if and when you file, you're always supposed to tell the truth about all of your wealth. The incentive for you to file is the refund that you get. The system is set up where they force you to file taxes, because if you are a W-2 employee, they will take money out of your check without your consent. You just accept that. To get that money back, you have to prove to them that you couldn't afford for them to take the money out your pocket in the first place. That's what the deductions are. You're showing them that I had more debt than I'm supposed to, and you should not take money from me, so give it back. That's what's going on there. If you want your refund back, you file taxes. If you don't give a shit about them taking the money out of your check, you don't file taxes. They are not going to force the refund on you. If you want your refund, you file. If you don't, you don't. And if you don't file, they're not going to come look for you, because why are they going to come look for you to say, hey, I owe you money? No. They audit you when you make false statements on your tax return, or if somebody reports you for allegedly having a large quantity of unreported wealth. Typically the rappers, and to be honest, the rappers and music artists that ends up with tax evasion typically are not claiming the quantity of taxation they're supposed to claim. And then they're dealing with all of this wealth. They have all of these houses and cars. They do cribs. They show off all of their wealth. And then somebody audits them and says, oh, hey, hold on. The amount of money that you made versus the amount of money that you said you was making isn't the same. And then you got to pay the difference. Some just don't pay taxes at all, like MC Hammer, who's just making money and just not doing anything about it. But I mean, when you're making millions of dollars and they're like, hey, you owe me $800K. If he would have balanced his budget right, out of the $54 million that he had at the time, he should have been able to give them $800K. He should have been able to say, oops, my bad, here go $800K, and kept doing what he was doing. But he spent more money than he made, so he did not have the $800K when they came looking for it. So they took all of his stuff that valued up to $800K. But if he would have been, but the man is still right now somewhere around $5 or $7 million worth of wealth. So he ain't broke. He ain't broke. He's broke rich, or a rich man broke, because he went from $54 million down to $5 million. But he ain't broke. He ain't $150,000 broke. He ain't $50,000 broke. He's still a millionaire. He's still a multimillionaire right now, right? So even though he lost his mansion and his golden toilets and all this other stuff that he had back in the 90s, the man is still rich. He don't got to make music no more. He ain't got to be seen in the public eye no more. He's making deals and making money, make money for him, and he's doing it quietly. That's how you make things work. Now, as we talked about, the fact that they're convincing you to file more taxes, which keeps track of more people's income. The same way with the stimulus checks, they offer stimulus checks to people who file. So if you don't file, you don't get nothing. But if you don't file, they ain't looking for nothing. If you lie, they can audit you. And if you owe money to the IRS, or if they believe that you owe them money, they have 10 years to collect. They typically come after larger quantities of money. I cannot give you the exact quantity of money that they'll come after, but they're less likely to come after you for $500 or $5,000. They're more likely to come after you for a few $100,000. So when you start rolling in the dough, when you owe them large quantities of money, they typically send you a letter in the mail saying, hey, you owe us money, or we're auditing you. And somewhere along the lines, they can go back 10 years from that date and look at all the money that you cannot prove to them that you've made. And then they just stack a number on there based on their policies and procedures, and you got to pay that. If you end up in that situation, you give them what the fuck they asked for, they leave you alone. If not, they might try to put you in jail because you're not paying the debt. It is what it is. But tax fraud and tax evasion comes from lying about your wealth. It doesn't come from not filing at all. Got to understand that part. Now, back to the new incentives to buy America. And this means with these incentives, you have to understand that this is about vehicles. To offset the vehicle prices, the rising vehicle prices due to the tariffs, which if you weren't following the show over the last few weeks, they had reduced the tariffs from the 175. It was 145% from America to China and 125 from China to America. The tariffs were high as fuck in both directions. And as a result, everything was starting to be expensive. The market was starting to slow and shit started to suck. So over the next 90 days, which ends close to August 15th, August 20th, so not too long from now, unless Donald Trump extends it, it's back down to 34% for America, 30 to 34% for America, and 25% for China. So it's down like almost 100% on both sides. It's down, right? So the economy is starting to improve a little bit, but not a lot because it's not on everything. It was just on food and stuff like that. The cars are still high as fuck. Cars have actually gone up about $10,000 as a result of the tariffs, between $3,000 and $10,000 for foreign cars. For American-made cars that have foreign parts, both foreign cars and American-made cars that have foreign parts. So this increase has caused domestic manufacturers to the manufacturer itself to sell cars at a higher price than the American-made, American-manufactured vehicles. Okay. Now, what they're doing right now is going to boost domestic manufacturing. For those individuals, we were talking about the stock market. If you invest in America, if you're interested in investing in it, American manufacturers, you're going to start seeing an increase in revenue for domestic companies like Dodge, Ford, Chevy, shit like that. Because the effort to get the foreign cars into the country is going to be harder due to the external tax revenue service and the customs. So there's going to be delays with imports. And then you're going to have the tariffs on top of that, which is going to be negatively impacting the flow of products from overseas, which is going to slow the accessibility of foreign cars in America, which allows American-made cars to have more access. Now, the cost of foreign cars are going to include the cost of tariffs. So you're going to see the foreign cars are going to be more expensive than the domestic cars. So it is what it is. The law that we got going on right now is going to create a new tax deduction for the interest paid on auto loans. For the tax year 2025 through 2028, taxpayers can deduct up to $10,000 per year, which is close to about $800 or $900 a month in interest on loans for your vehicle if it is assembled in the United States. How do you know if your car was assembled in the United States? Now, fact check this, Robert, if he was still awake. You can look on the door of your vehicle and it'll tell you where it was built and what year it was built. So if it came from the manufacturing plant in Sacramento, California, it'll say made in Sacramento, California. And what year it was made. It'll have the month and the year that it was put together and where it was built. If it was made in Taiwan or Thailand or China or you know, any of the countries in Asia or Russia. If you got a Jetta, probably wasn't built in America. But if you've got a Ford Mustang or a Chevy, probably was made in America. It was not made, because a lot of the parts came from somewhere else, but it was probably assembled in America. So that you would be able to claim, which is going to require you to probably put your VIN number on your tax return and all this other stuff. However, they'll be able to give you a $10,000 tax credit towards up to $10,000 towards the interest paid on your vehicle. Now, how do you know how much interest you're paying on your vehicle? Well, you can weigh the pros and cons of your notes, but typically more than half of your car payment is interest, to be fair. If you look at how much your car was sold at versus the quantity of notes that you're paying over the number of years that you're paying it, you can determine that usually you have about half of your monthly payment is interest. Sometimes 3/4 of your monthly payment is interest. Can you decipher the difference between the two? No. Most people would simply just say that the amount of money that they paid for the first 2 or 3 years of owning their car, all interest. Unless you're overpaying on the car. Aon says, have you read Trump's Better Business Bureau? No, I have not. That is interesting. I'm going to have to take a look at that. He asked because I saw the description of the live. The description of the live was Big Beautiful Bill, right? It says 5 ways Trump's Big Beautiful Bill changes everything. So are you asking me, did I read Trump? Oh, did I read Trump's Big Beautiful Bill? Yes, that's what we're doing. We're going over the Big Beautiful Bill right now. That's what we're covering right now. Yes, we are covering the Big Beautiful Bill right now. We've already covered child support. We've covered the taxation on tips and the taxation on overtime hours and how that is going to benefit you and potentially cause you harm over time. We're right now talking about how the tax credit on, or tax deduction, not a credit, the tax deduction on American manufactured vehicles where it's built or assembled in America. No, that's my fault, because when I see 3 capital B's, I automatically assume the Better Business Bureau, because that's how the Better Business Bureau is represented, is 3 capital B's. But abbreviation, Big Beautiful Bill, that actually does apply. So that was my mistake. No problem. But yeah, I actually covered the Big Beautiful Bill a few months ago. I think the first time I covered the Big Beautiful Bill was when he first talked about it in February or March. And then I covered it again around the time that Elon Musk and Donald Trump parted ways. And now I'm covering it again because it got passed. So on this show, we do real world coverage on shit that happens that directly impacts the economy, that directly impacts the bottom 50% of America. You know, the average everyday worker. This is the stuff that I talk about. I'm not the kind of person that sits here and really goes over like famous people who have no impact on my life, famous people who, rich people who, they're so rich, like I would not cross paths with them on an intentional basis. We would have to accidentally be in the same place at the same time. I don't pay attention to that. I'm not the person that's going to do like a TMZ story about rich people and talk about what they got going on in their lives, because if we're so focused on how rich people live, we're not living. We have to learn what they've got going on so that we can navigate around that and make extra money and then utilize that extra money to put profits in our pockets. That's what we got to do. So I talk to you guys about how to invest and save and make better spending choices. And then I talk about stuff like this because this interferes with that. Because a lot of people are going to think, oh yeah, we got a lot of money coming in, but you're not going to see a lot of money coming in. Notice that your paychecks haven't gotten larger technically, right? Your checks are still being hit the way they were being hit. The only difference is that you're going to get a larger tax return. at the end of the year, which means you're going to have larger discretionary spending at the end of the tax year. So January, February, March of next year, you're going to see bigger tax returns for those individuals that already were not tax exempt. You're going to see bigger tax returns. But that's going to mean that people are going to waste more money during tax season because people do not spend their money correctly when they're getting their money. So that's a big issue. And we talk about why spending on this show. Don't get that tax return and then go and blow it on some bullshit that you really need to put it strategically in a place where that money will make money for you. Some people use it to catch up on their bills so that they're no longer behind, or pay the interest on their credit cards so that they're no longer overdrawn. But you really got to look at, you're giving your money away, because if you're paying all the interest, you're not really hitting the principal and you're not really doing anything about your debt. And your credit card is still maxed out, and your credit score still sucks because your credit card is still maxed out. So you really did nothing other than give your money to the credit card companies. It is a revolving door if you're spending more money than you're making. So the goal is to try to reduce the quantity of money that you spend so that the money that you're making can go a lot further. Then, because you're making more money, stop wasting it on bullshit and start putting it in places where your money can make money for you, so that you can eventually have a large enough quantity of money to quit working for somebody else and start making money for yourself, whether you start up your own business or live off your stock options. Either way it goes, you're not having to, at 50, 60, 70 years old, work for somebody else to make a living. That's what we try to get you guys to get to. And it's easier to do, especially if you're in a relationship. Two people come together and 40% of your household income goes into the stock. If y'all are making 100,000, 110,000 between the two of y'all, y'all could put 40,000 a year in the stocks and use a dividend rotation strategy to get yourself an extra $20,000 to $40,000 of profit every year, if not $45,000 to $50,000 of profit every year, where you could be make money for you off the stock option. And then in 10 years, you can see yourself close to $1 million if you're doubling your money every year. And then you just got to be committed in your relationship. He says, I get that. So then for the lower economy, what can we do? Like, I hardly make $1,800 a month. Okay, so a lot of the things that Donald Trump does sucks for the average American, specifically because the inflation is going to happen. And that's going to mean that your dollars are not going to go as far. You're making $1,800 a month. There's a lot of people that are making between $1,800 and $4,500 a month. And they're actually usually they're making $4,500 a month because they're working two jobs. But the fact is that's anywhere between $1,800 to $3,000 easy off of one job is what the average individual is doing. And the best way for you to navigate through this is, first of all, with your purchases, as far as grocery shopping, is you want to pay attention to the unit price, because the unit price shows you the value of the item per ounce, per pound, per unit in the package, and comparing that to other products of the same style to determine what you're going to get. Instead of buying by brand, you buy based on unit price, and that's going to reduce your bill first and foremost. The second thing that's going to help you save money is, instead of buying a brand new car, if you've got to buy a newer car, buy a certified pre-owned vehicle, or just outright buy a used car. Just straight up buy something that was manufactured before 2020. It's going to not be impacted by the tariffs, because the tariffs hit everything that was made in 2025. You might see 2024s being sold at 2025 prices, but your 2023s are going to be sold at a reduced rate because it's a 2-year-old vehicle and it's probably got 3,000 to 5,000 miles on it from all the test drives and never being sold. Those vehicles end up being turned into certified pre-owned vehicles at a reduced rate. You see 10 or 20,000, depending on the price of the vehicle. It goes down by a significant amount. So a $50,000 brand new vehicle might be $30,000, and a $30,000 brand new vehicle might be $15,000 or $20,000. You might see a luxury model vehicle being sold at the price of a base model vehicle because they couldn't sell it 2 years ago when it first came out, which means you can essentially buy the upgrade for the price of the base model. Outside of that, don't spend more than you need to. So you're not trying to waste money on looking good. You're not trying to buy the G-Wagon or the Bentley or whatever. You're trying to buy an economy car, something that has high gas mileage, that has low repair costs. It's not a sports vehicle, so that your insurance is lower. You can even pay attention to the different colors, because certain colors like red, black, have higher insurance premiums. Yellow, because black is hard to see and yellow and red are like racing colors. And you end up seeing different types of vehicles have higher insurance premiums. So all of these things, if you're paying close attention as to what you can do to save a little bit more money. Also, you want to pay off all of your credit cards before the end of the billing cycle so that your credit cards show a $0 balance or as close to a $0 balance as possible. Even if you did max out the credit cards 2 days after the billing cycle rolls over, 3 days before the billing cycle ends, you want to have a zero balance on your credit cards. That way, the three major credit agencies are reporting zero balances, which gives you the highest credit limits with the lowest utilizations, which allows you to have a higher credit score. Higher credit score allows you to have lower interest rates. That's another thing that nobody pays attention to. Lower interest rates on your car note, lower interest rates on your car insurance, lower interest rates on your mortgage. If you're going to buy a house, I would recommend that you buy a house instead of renting a house because you can have a larger space for a smaller quantity of money. And depending on which house you're getting and depending on the area that you get it from, the house is going to be cheaper than the renting. And you should, if you're getting a house that's not on the HOA, have more control. So you cow tipping to what the landlord says, you do whatever the fuck you want because you own the property. If you put all of these things into trust, I will put your vehicles in a different trust than your house. That way, if something happens to the vehicles, the only thing that's impacted is the other vehicles in a trust. If your house is in a separate trust, you don't own these things technically. So if somebody sues you, they can't get shit because you don't own shit. And then that allows your stuff to be protected. Also, if your capital is going through a trust and then that capital ends up coming out of a trust and paying you from a living trust, the money that you get from a trust that did not turn a profit is tax-free money, which means you don't pay taxes on that money. And you also can Schedule K the money that you get off your paycheck to a trust, which means that you're not taxed on any money that you Schedule K to a trust. And that kind of navigates you away from that stuff. So that's some of the stuff that you can do off the top to make, save, and invest money just for the sake of shorthand. But I cover all of these things over the past like 12 months on the show. So definitely go through and look at a lot of the stuff that I was just telling you. He said, been trying so hard to save up, either trade in my 2015 Nissan Leaf or get a new drive battery in it. Costs about $20K. Could literally outright buy a new freaking car, even if it's old or pre-owned. That's one of the problems with getting an electric car. He said, have a nice little studio apartment for about $1,030 a month. Yeah, but you can you could own a 2,000 square foot house on a 2 to 3 acre piece of property for $950 a month if you get it in the right city and state. So it really depends. Space wise, you have a nice little studio apartment that's like $10-30 a month and you don't have any responsibilities. It's your own room in a larger facility that probably, if you're lucky, has the utilities included, and maintenance is somebody else's problem. Or you could have your own house and be paying that same $1,000 and you have your own driveway. You don't have to answer to anybody. You don't have to have any roommates, and it's the same price. He says Nevada ain't that nice. They got some houses in Nevada that's $250,000 or less, $130,000, $150,000. If your credit is right, you're living at 30% of your income. You could get, or actually, I think they might let you get away with 43% of your income, but you could buy you a house that is equal to or less than the monthly cost of the rent of that studio apartment, have a larger space, and it'd be yours. And then the only thing you got to deal with is your neighbor. Yeah, you're going to have more responsibilities, but the fact is that owning your own house, that's a plus. And then if you own your own house, you have a few extra rooms. You can rent out some of those rooms if you want to and get a bunch of neighbors, or get a bunch of tenants. You be the landlord and have to, if you got like a 2 or 3 bedroom house and you're renting out 2 of the rooms and you got a couple people there that's paying your rent, then by subletting your house, they could be paying your mortgage. Because if each person is giving you $500 a month for the room that they're in with lights and water included, and y'all have a common space, and each one's giving you $500 a month, that's $1,000 out of your $1,030 mortgage, and you would only have to pay $30 towards your house, plus the lights and water. Y'all just have to share the parking lot. So, you know, there's that. You could turn profits if you own your own shit. You can't really you can't sublet your apartment because that's a breach of contract. You know, you only get away with in America getting a roommate off the lease because you're in a relationship. That's it. You're dating the person that's living in your apartment. But legally, you're supposed to notify your landlord within 2 weeks of that person becoming a permanent resident so that the landlord can add that person to your contract. Typically, landlords don't care because you're paying the money on time, so they don't give a fuck who's in your house more often than not because they're not coming to fix your shit. But the fact is that technically, especially if they're already living there when you renew, you're supposed to add them to your lease so that the contract is updated, that all the people that are in the residence right now are authorized by the owner of the property to be there legally. So, yeah, there's that. But when you say this is what you were talking about with your Nissan Leaf, this is one of the reasons why buying electric isn't as good as people think it is, because I've covered this on a show quite a few times. Buying an electric car, it takes about 20 years of carbon emissions to create the battery before they put it in the electric cars. You have to own the car about 20 to 25 years to have a positive influence on the environment, to offset the cost to the environment to create the battery. Then the price of the vehicle is usually $10,000 to $25,000 more than the price of a gas powered vehicle. And in order for you to turn a profit off of owning the vehicle, you would have to own the vehicle for about 20 to 25 years. Now, as you explained, the cost of replacing the batteries are about $20,000 in your vehicle. Some vehicles have the price of the battery is between $5,000 and $10,000 for the battery replacement. But if you have 4 batteries that you have to replace for the motor, for the electric motor, it's still 20 grand. Either way, the fact is that the battery is the total functionality of the engine of the car. So once you replace those batteries, you got a whole new car. But if you need 20 grand to replace the batteries, you ask yourself, do you finance the 20 grand to replace the car, or do you buy a new car? Now, here is something that most people don't know. Aon, I want you to think about this if you're still here real quick. Did you know that if you've got full coverage insurance on your car, you can take out a claim for that $20,000? Plain and simple. You can take out a claim. Yeah, it'll hit your insurance. Your insurance might go up $50 a month. But if you don't have a shit ton of accidents on your insurance policy, because you can only have like 3 in a single cycle, 2 in a single cycle, and keep your policy. 3, they'll pay for it, but they'll drop you on a third one. If you have less than 2, you can take out a claim on your Nissan if you have comprehensive and collision. Comprehensive is an accident or damage to the vehicle that did not get caused from a crash. Comprehensive is like a tree falling on your car, or your fucking batteries are blown up or some shit. Comprehensive. So bring your car to a mechanic shop, charge the replacement batteries to your insurance. The claim on the insurance will pay the $20,000 for your car, but because you paid $20,000 to replace your batteries, you're keeping that Leaf for another 5 or 10 years. Now, here's the issue that I have with the electric batteries on the electric cars. I love the idea of getting an electric car. I want one, but I also have a problem with it. Yes, you might save about $15,000 to $20,000 per year on the cost of gas, minus the $40, $50 a month that you're going to add to your light bill for the cost of electricity, when you don't have some type of solar panel source that is charging your vehicle in the yard without it being plugged up to your house, or finding free places to plug your vehicle up to charge your vehicle while you're on the go. The thing is, while there isn't maintenance on the vehicle because it's a single chain link system and that's pretty much it, that 20 grand battery cost more the one time it has to happen than the oil change, brake change, tire change, tune up on the spark plugs and wires that occurs annually, quarterly on most gas powered vehicles. That part is ridiculous. Now, here's the other thing that I don't like about electric batteries right now. I'm glad you're still here. One of the things that I don't like about the electric batteries, they typically last between 100 and 200,000 miles. Now, if you are going 20,000 miles a year, which is for some Americans not possible, they drive more than that. If you're going 20,000 miles a year, that 200,000 mile battery might last you 10 years. If you are doing 100 to 200 miles a day on your electric vehicle, that motherfucker might last you 5 years, which means that you will then be spending another 20 grand. You just barely paid off the damn car, probably got a 7-year finance contract. 5 years in, its warranty expired. 3 years in, the battery needs to be replaced. 5 years in, you know that the warranty on the damn car does not cover the life of the battery, only if the battery shorts out before that. So 2 years after the warranty expires, the battery is dead. You still owe money on the car, and now you have to replace the batteries and still go out and get another car. That shit is ridiculous. But that's what they got going on with the electric car. But you could have bought a gas power car for $15,000. You could have bought, I think it was a Nissan Rogue. You could have bought like a Nissan Maxima, you could have bought a Corolla. You could have bought a Honda Civic and got one for like $15,000 to $18,000, and you would own it before the battery goes out. Before the electric car's battery go out, you would own that car, because the electric car is sometimes $10,000 more. You would have owned it. Now, Aeon said, admittedly, I work with an insurance broker, but I never thought about that. Do have coverage, but time I ask, I'm told it's not covered by warranty. Never thought insurance direct. Yeah. If you have full coverage. Now, if for some people who like to scapegoat and they only get the collision and the PIP, where they don't have the comprehensive, then your insurance is not going to cover it. The warranty for the vehicle, the manufacturer warranty, is that the vehicle, the battery is not defective. It is usage. So the warranty is not going to cover that. The comprehensive is that if your vehicle is no longer operational for any reason that has nothing to do with an actual collision, comprehensive is supposed to cover that. It's going to be a hit towards your insurance. And if you change insurance agents, then your insurance will be higher with a new agent. But if you stay with your same insurance agent, that hit, they'll cover it. Your premiums will go up for the next season, but who gives a fuck if you got a 20 grand repair bill that did not come out of your pocket? And if you've got comprehensive with the roadside assistance and the free rental car, or not free because you're paying for it, but the rental car, you put your car in the shop, they give you a rental car, and the 2 to 3 weeks it takes for them to get that electric battery and install everything and call you, tell you come get it. You're driving somebody else's car so that you don't miss a beat. Then you bring back the rental car, pick your car up from the shop, your insurance pay for the repair. That's what car insurance is supposed to be for. It's not to give them money so that you don't get a ticket. I'm not paying $50, $100, $200, $300 a month for car insurance just so that I don't get a ticket because the police officer finished his donut when I drove by and now he wants to pull somebody over because he didn't get his coffee. Nah, you pay the car insurance so that you can say, hey, my car is not working and I've got insurance. Cover that. Got a few places I charge for free. There isn't a lot of places that charge for free, but if you have the portable charge adapter and a fucking extension cord to plug it into a wall, you can find any establishment with an outdoor wall unit that doesn't have a bunch of surveillance cameras. You can park your car near the building and plug it into the building, plug it into your charge, and get free electricity. That's pirating. I just want to let you know that is pirating electricity. However, any business that has a vending machine outside more than likely has a wall unit out there. And if you have the adapter to plug your car up into your house with a 3-prong charger thing, you can plug it up to the vending machine. You don't have to unplug the vending machine. You just plug it up next to the vending machine, run the extension cord and to your car and charge your car up. Nobody's going to tell you shit. You're only going to be there for like 10, 20 minutes. It takes you more time because you're going to unpack your car, roll out the extension cord, plug it up to the building, stick it into your car, do what you got to do. Every now and again, some asshole might unplug your shit, but you're only going to be there long enough to do whatever it is that you came to this place. By the time you come outside and unplug your car, you got you an extra 15, 20 minutes of free charge, and no business is going to call the police because your Tesla was plugged up to the vending machine. Nobody's going to do that. Because the soon as somebody's like, what's this? My car died and I can't get to the gas station. Oh, no worries. Because they don't want you stranded in their parking lot. It's like, bro, if you don't let me do this and I got to sleep in a car until somebody comes and brings me a charge, they're not gonna let you camp out there. They will prefer that you get the free electricity and get off their lot than for you to sleep in their car because you can't leave because your car won't start. So you can finagle your way. You just got to be polite, be respectful. If some asshole says no, don't do it. But if don't nobody say nothing, just plug it up and mind your own business. Who needs brakes? My home is off the grid. I like to keep homes off the grid and pay cash for everything. Used to have a gas car, do 200 miles almost 3 to 4 times a month. I used to drive 600 miles. Yeah, that makes about sense. And my Leaf charges approximately 73 miles. Not much of a charge. So you're encouraging people to steal from other people. No, I am not encouraging people to steal from other people. I am telling people that there are other ways to go about accomplishing things in your life. However, I am encouraging people to pay attention and do their research so that they can know how they can accomplish the things that they were not able to accomplish before. But there's a life hack for everything. Life hacks are ways around whatever. What are you teaching me? I am teaching you to look into alternatives so that you do not fail. That's what I am teaching you. 110 volt or 220 volt. It doesn't really matter. The difference between 110 volt and 220 volt is the difference between a slow charge and a fast charge. So if you have an industrial extension cord, that's going to give you the most voltage. And if they have a vending machine, it's probably on a 220 surge. So if you're doing a vending machine, you can plug it up and get your 220. But if it's just a wall socket, it might just be 110. The difference between the two is that you're not going to get as much power. But if you're just getting a top off, which technically gives you like a quarter mile of extra charge from that one, because you got a fast charger would take like 30 minutes to an hour to charge your car, which means that you would literally have to pull up at a pump, plug your car in, go wait in a drive-through or something like that, go to like a long restaurant wait, and that hour it takes for you to get fed and come out of the building is the time it takes for you to charge your car, which is the most inconvenient thing in comparison to going to a gas pump. Because when you go to a gas pump, you're able to dump put your car in the thing, dump gas into it, less than 5 minutes. It probably takes more money to prepay at the pump when you're trying to get the correct credit card, trying to get your discount coupons, mileage points, and everything like that, and then sit there and pump the gas. So 5 minutes, 7 minutes to fill the tank, unless you got like a 19-gallon gas tank on your Hellcat. Then it might be 10 or 15 minutes to fill your tank. But once you fill your, that's it, you're out. And you're good. But with an electric car, 30 minutes, easy. 30 minutes, easy. So the time it takes for you to whip out and plug in and then go do what you got to do, if you're in Walmart for an hour and come back out, you should at least get 20, 30% out of a wall socket instead of a fast charger. That's all I'm saying. He said, but if you communicate that with the company first, then you're cool. But if you steal it first, it's theft. And there you go. Call them and asshole if they tell you no. Well, special shout out to Michael. Michael's got Michael's got a way of trying to spin it, but I like the way you put it. Yes, if you want to go over there and just get what you're going to get, you can do that. But think about the fact that people who have Teslas, who know that somebody's house has a Tesla charger on it, Those people go to those houses and they plug their car up to those chargers. Now, they may know about that charger because they're in that neighborhood, and they may know about that charger because Tesla reports that charger as a free charging location. Either way, if you have to park your car on somebody else's property and plug it in without you going and talking to that business first, you're pirating electricity anyway. But the electric car map, and I noticed that even with the Chevy Volt, charge you for charging your car. But the fact is that a lot of those places were businesses and some private homes that had a charge station compatible with the vehicle, and it was listed on the car's roadmap. But that does not mean that that is free for me. That means that I don't have to pay for it if I'm allowed to use it, but it's accessible because it's outside, like the air pump outside of a gas station. But that does not mean that it's free for me. So just because I could plug it into my car doesn't mean I should not ask the resident. But that's common sense. Now, when you think about it like that, how many times do you get out of your electric car, go into the establishment first, and say, can I use that charger? Most people just see, ooh, this is a charger. I can plug my car into it. They plug it in, and if they have to pay, they do. And if they don't, they don't. But they don't see the charger, look around for the correct building that might be in ownership or possession of this charger, go inside and say, hey, can I use that charger? Is that yours? Can I use it? Most people don't do that. If that was a thing, people would probably not buy electric cars because it's hard to get permission in America. So he's something else. Remember to like and subscribe. Special shout out to Michael. Make sure that you guys like and subscribe as y'all coming through, because we talk about all kinds of stuff on this show. Now, the benefits is broadly accessible for those individuals that are buying vehicles that are created in the United States. It's available to both itemizers and non-itemizers with an income cap of $100,000 for single individuals and $200,000 for joint filers. So notice that anyone under commodities breaks. So we're about to get into the devastating catch that pays for all of the tax relief. But first, I just want you guys to make sure that if you're valuing any of the information that you're getting from the channel, definitely do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. Give this show a like, either on Twitch, Twitter, or YouTube, because it really helps the channel and it tells the algorithm that you want to see more of the deep dives that we do into the economy changes and how the economy's changing affects your wallet, as well as providing you with the information on stock trades and other such stuff that we do to put extra money into your pocket. So your support makes all of this possible. I really appreciate that. And for the most part, you know, you guys don't even have to give me $1. You could, but I never look forward to it. So let's talk about the first part of the catch, which is healthcare. So anybody who's not still here from earlier today, we're going to get into the healthcare. I want to talk about, hold on. He said, I'm thinking of buying a wrecked electric car just for the battery and incorporating it into my power grid. Actually, that's a good idea. If the battery isn't damaged and the car is total, you could potentially go to LKQ and go and snatch from like a U-Pull-It or something like that. You could go and snatch your electric bag, especially if it's the same make and model as the one that you have, and snatch the battery out. And the salvage yard may not have the same value on that battery as a battery manufacturer, and you could get a used battery dirt cheap, which would extend the life of your car without having to have a brand new battery, and it would be far cheaper. It said could be super great. Definitely recommend it. He said my wallet is broke. Most of us are, man. That's kind of the way things are around here, and that's one of the reasons why I tell you guys about putting your effort into finding other ways to make yourselves more successful. Now, when we start talking about this bill, the healthcare scenario, I want to get into the healthcare scenario real quick. It's just a storage for electricity. Well, before I get on that bill, you can get an electric battery. You can get electric batteries for your house to back up your electricity and then offset when you have power fluctuations in your house, especially if you have one of those receivers that switches back and forth from the grid to the electric battery, which could essentially put your house in an off-the-grid situation. If you got like solar panels and all this other stuff, and you have a completely off-the-grid scenario where you're like backflowing electricity to the electric company, it helps. I would, in that particular type of scenario, especially if I own my own house, affix an electric fence around my house because, I mean, I've got enough power to do it, and discourage people from coming to my house because, I mean, I can afford an electric fence because I'm off the grid, which discourages people from coming into my yard. So, you know, Johnny Law would have to cut the power, and you can't cut the power unless you get over the fence because the power is unlimited, you know. So you got to serve your warrant with rubber gloves. He said, I'm all ears on the healthcare stuff. That's the main of what I deal with at work. So to pay for the broad tax cuts for families, seniors, and workers, the lawmakers made deep and painful cuts into the national health care program, fundamentally altering the country's social safety net. So for years, programs like Medicaid have provided a critical healthcare lifeline for millions of low-income Americans. And this was covering 1 in 5 people in the United States and paying for nearly half of all births. And the new laws target these very programs, where the bill is projected to cut hundreds of billions of dollars from Medicaid by imposing new strict work requirements for many adults and making it harder to qualify for coverage if it wasn't already hard enough. One of the things that it's also going to do is, he said he's not going to share his electricity. One thing it's also going to do is promote Donald Trump's Trump phone, because he's got the Trump phone coming out in 2 months. Somewhere between the 21st of August and the 25th of September, somewhere in that area, he's supposed to be releasing his Trump phone, and his Trump phone is supposed to be $47.45 a month for a $499 phone that comes with concierge services incorporated in the phone plan. Yeah. He did say that at the beginning of the year that they were going to privatize healthcare. So the government was no longer going to be paying for healthcare, and individuals would be paying for their healthcare out of their Social Security, disability, and their veterans benefits, which, depending on the kind of health coverage that you have, could be upward to $750 a month, unless the Obamacare plans that were reinforced by the Biden administration allows you to receive a market health plan that is covered by Joe Biden's $1,500 a year health coverage situation. So if you can find a healthcare plan that is under $1,500 a year, which should be something close to $100 a month or less, you could stay on a free healthcare plan. And potentially, if you got to pay a little bit more so that you can get the medication, you're now paying $30 to $50 a month for your healthcare instead of paying $750 a month, because the marketplace coverage tax credit actually is paying for throughout the year your health insurance. So make sure you take advantage of that, because the government ain't paying for it no more. For example, it mandates 80 hours of work community service, or job training per month for many adults up to 65 years to remain eligible. Now, I know some people are going to be pissed off at that, but hold on. If you're getting 80 hours of job training per month, you ain't got to really do nothing. You just got to learn shit. But community service, 80 hours of community service ultimately means that you're working for nothing in order to stay on your benefits. You can work 80 hours a week, but if you're working 80 hours a week and you're getting paid too much money, then your Social Security starts getting negatively impacted. So to stay on Medicaid, now this is what's stupid about this, is that they want you to maintain full-time employment or do community service to maintain health coverage where the full-time work hours could negatively impact your Social Security disability, which is stupid. So you could do community service, which means that you're working for free. I don't like that idea. Unless you're 65. If you're 65 or older, you're in the clear. Mitchell says, I pay cash to my doctor instead of insurance. Then I have a policy that I pay $5,000 in cash. Everything else is covered. So you've got a $5,000 deductible, and then everything else is covered. Medicaid takes everything you own. Then you are placed in the hospice. Yeah. Well, I actually like zero deductible life insurance or health insurance policies where I pay a premium and then I don't have to pay for anything. But I come to find that that is a waste of money in my lifestyle because I rarely go to the doctor, because I only go to the doctor when I get hurt, because I don't get sick. And, you know, there's the annual checkups. And I can't remember the last time I had an annual checkup, but I maintain a decent level of health. So with that, I do not invest effort into utilizing what I would be paying for if I was paying for an extensive health insurance coverage. So I just deal with the lowest level health insurance coverage that pays for itself, so I don't have to pay for it, so that I'm not being taxed that $900 penalty when you file taxes, if you file taxes for not having health insurance. So I maintain insurance on record, but I don't use it. He says 6 months later, everyone visits you at the funeral because hospice, you're not going to survive. Now, according to the Congressional Budget Office, CBO, these changes could cause an estimated 11.8 to 17 million Americans to lose their health insurance coverage over the next 10 years. Research has shown that such requirements often lead to significant coverage losses. So if you work in the health insurance industry, you're going to be losing customers. If you're making money off a commission, you're going to have a harder time making money on that field, because a lot of people are going to be pushed out as opposed to people not applying, even for people who are working, due to the complex paperwork and reporting hurdles. Now, a parent working a low-wage job with inconsistent hours might suddenly lose their family's health coverage because of these requirements. The CBO projects the number of uninsured Americans could be 16 million higher by 2034, which is 9 years from now, 8 years and 6 months from now, which would be 4 years after his last term. Or no, he's got 2 years left in this term. 3 years left in this term. And then after that, he could potentially run and get another 4 more years. So he'd be doing 7 years, and a year and a half after his next 4-year term, if he did run again, a year and a half after that, this would kick everybody in the teeth. This is a controversial trade-off. So the financial relief for one group is directly funded by removing the health care and security of another group. The second part of the devastating catch comes from drastic changes to the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or the SNAP program, which helps over 42 million people put food on the table in 2023. Starting now, the law enacts deep cuts into the SNAP program, totaling nearly $300 billion over the next 10 years. Much like the healthcare cuts, it does this by fundamentally restructuring how the program is funded and who is eligible. So the bill shifts major costs to the states, which now have to cover a portion of the food benefits the federal government used to fund entirely. At the same time, it dramatically expands harsh work requirements and cuts federal funding for administrative costs. Let's see here. Thoughts on the current presidential administration saying the Epstein list was fake. What was on? Okay, you're the second person to ask me about the Epstein list. Special shout out to Magenta. What is the Epstein list? What is on the Epstein list? Because so many people are talking about the Epstein list being fake, and nobody's talking about how he is pushing the Project 2025 agenda after claiming that he was not affiliated with the Project 2025 agenda when his administration wrote the Project 2025 agenda in 2017. And the Project 2025 agenda is impacting the way we live in America. But how is the Epstein list impacting how we live in America? Monumental services, lunch daily, Monday, Thursday, Friday, great meals for $7. Okay, so special shout out to Montesano. Where, Michael, where is that restaurant at? Don't think that you're gonna be sitting over here trying to do a sound bite and I ain't gonna say something about it. He gonna put it out there, Michael. Where is this place serving lunch daily, Monday through Friday, with great meals for $7? Community center. But where? Which state is it in? Washington State. All right. So if you're looking for a good meal, hop a plane to Washington State, go to Montesano, and for $7, get you a good meal Monday through Friday. I know that sounds ridiculous, but support the cause. Fly out there and get you, and it'll make them feel better if you flew out there to get you a good meal for $7. Granted, the plane ticket might cost you a couple $100. But the community center is the community center. Okay, so the Epstein list was a list full of celebrities and politicians who apparently engage in sexual acts with underage girls. So everybody at the Diddy party, the majority of employees in the Disneyland in Orlando, Florida, because they keep getting busted, 45 people at a time, employee every time they hit somebody with a child trafficking ring in Florida, Pinellas County, usually is always a handful of Disney employees involved in that. I don't know why. Winnie the Pooh wearing his costume backwards. He said, for the longest, the presidential administration was saying they were going to release the list, but now they're saying the list is fake. Well, here's a question though, because children do dumb things. I'm going to start with that. Adults should not condone that. I'm going to finish with that. But in the middle of that is that you're going to have grown folks doing grown folks stuff, and some kind of way, these chitlins is lingering their way into the squad, especially these young girls that are making themselves look like they're 20 when they're like 17, 18, sometimes 16. I have no excuse for how these boys are getting into the mix. But if they got recruited from the Catholic Church, you just have to understand that if they thought this was choir practice and Diddy's not singing hymns, it's not going to end well, but it's too late because your ride ain't coming back for a few hours. Is it really that important that the celebrities who are not on the Diddy trial or on a list that is not going to prosecute them? Because keep in mind now, regardless of whether or not they did or did not do what is allegedly accused of them, Donald Trump got convicted of 34 felonies, and then they dropped it because he got elected. In that order, he was convicted in June, supposed to be sentenced in July. They did a stay on his sentencing, and then they lost the chain of evidence and threw the case out after he got elected. We literally elected a convicted felon who did not serve a day in jail, maintained CIA escort, which is the closest thing to house arrest, did not serve a day in jail, but did do everything that he said that he did. Word on the street is that Diddy got released and was not guilty for, after getting sentenced 30+1 years for everything that he did, allegedly got not guilty for some stuff and potentially let go. I have not covered that story because my question is exactly how does that impact your money? That's my concern. But on this and that, we do talk about this, that, and everything in between. Michael said the girls want to play. Well, you say that I defend rapists. I actually don't defend anybody. My question is, don't sound like defending them, so at least not unsubscribing. Yeah, I don't defend them. I'm going to be out, because if you stay subscribed or not, it's up to you. I don't cover these kinds of conversations, and the reason why I don't cover these kinds of conversations is because the people who do what they're doing, the things that they're not supposed to do, and they have the money to get away with it, they're gonna do it. Okay, is it right? No. Should they be convicted for it? Yes. Will they be convicted for it? Highly unlikely, which is the reason why they're able to get away with it. The problem that I have is that the average everyday person, okay, who is not directly impacted by this, because this isn't your kid that's involved on the Epstein's list. This isn't your niece or nephew that's involved on the Epstein's list. But you're concerned about the Epstein's list, to say that the list is fake. I don't know if the list is fake. I've never seen the list. I don't know what the list is about. When you asked me about it, first question I asked you was, what the hell is the Epstein's list? Then the next thing is that, does that directly impact me? Because my kids are not on that list. I would not bring my children to a celebrity and leave them there for things to happen. I can't say nothing about the children that are snatched up off the public park, but I can say that I'm not going to voluntarily have my kid at Never Never Land so that Michael Jackson can doodle. But what I can say is that the unforeseen circumstances that happens are unforeseen circumstances that don't necessarily get prosecuted by law, because millionaires have enough money to pay the judges to look the other way. And a lot like Donald Trump paid $135,000 for an adult worker to do what she did, which was cheaper than the congressional woman that got $450 for a jaw job. I mean, the fact is that people with money will pay the cost to do what they want to do and then pay the cost to get away with it. The average individual who doesn't have enough money to get away with that, they're not going to do that. And define average. Average is, okay, so when you say define average, it is the majority of the country that does not make $100,000 or more a year, that cannot afford to get away with anything. If a police officer says that you did it, the judge is going to treat you like you did it, even if you didn't. That's the average. Okay. The average individual that'll get pistol whipped on the side of the road because you didn't take off your seatbelt, the average individual that will have a gun shoved in their face because they didn't hand their ID to the police officer, even though the police officer can clearly see that that's your name and your face on the ID, but he wants to hold it in his hand, so he will mace you because he can't hold it in his hand. That's the average individual. The Epstein's list doesn't affect those people. Don't affect us. It doesn't. Human trafficking affects us emotionally, but it doesn't affect us directly unless it's our relative involved in the sting operation. But there are that many monsters in society that they're doing a sting operation every 3 months, and they are picking up several hundred people in a regular basis, sometimes in the same location for the same thing in America. It doesn't stop. It doesn't stop. So when I started talking to you guys about Project 2025 and how your money is going to be negatively impacted by Trump's new bill that just got passed in July, and you asked me about how a list of people that are acting inappropriately, it's just like a list of people that was at Diddy's house acting inappropriately. It's just like all the people that were acting inappropriately at Michael Jackson's house. It's just like the Cosby parties. I have never been to a Cosby party and will never get a chance to go to Cosby parties, so I would not be affected by that at all. So that's why my podcast would not be generated around that. But because you asked, I try my best to entertain that a little bit. But I'm more focused on how society is negatively impacted by the changes in the laws, the changes in the economy, the changes in political powers, the changes in trades between countries, between conflicts with countries like Iran and Israel not working well together, and a lot of the resources that normally would come from Iran is not coming from Iran because Iran is still bombing Israel and Israel still bombing Iran, which negatively impacts trades, which negatively impacts investments, which negatively impacts my ability to make money, which negatively impacts my ability to invest in my future, which negatively impacts my ability to have an early retirement or to maintain a satisfactory early retirement. This is what we talk about. We talk about the long game as to how an external force directly impacts your internal ability to quit working while you're young enough to enjoy life without having to depend on the government, without having to depend on a free ride from somebody else, without having to beg for anything. You earned enough money to stop. That's what I talk about on the show. And then I also talk about ways for you to make different decisions in your life with the money that you're bringing in so that you do not waste the money that you're bringing in, which ultimately causes you to spend more time working for more money because you're wasting the principal instead of investing the principal and living off of the interest. That's what we talk about on the show. So no, I don't condone the rapist on the list. I don't condone the assaulters and everything like that. I prefer that, they didn't exist, but because they do, the only thing I can do is keep my kids away from strangers and, screen everybody, vet the people that I'm going to allow to engage. And I vet the adults of the children that I let my children engage, because not all the time do your kids get snatched up by a stranger. A lot of the times your kids get snatched up by somebody who already knows your kid. So your kid could come up missing because your kid was with your kid's friend and your kid's parents snatched your kid up. So you got to pay attention to these things. And so, no, we'll never see that list. Need to get some sleep. Got a 9 a.m. tomorrow. Take it easy. Aeon, I'll see you tomorrow if you slide back through, because tomorrow we're going to be talking about some other scenarios that are going to be improving our ability to make money, because that's what we talk about on Tuesday. We talk about ways to make money for us. Esper, if I go to jail for anything, I'm dying day one, no matter the crime. That's the reality for trans folks. Okay, so I am not able to comment on that, because I can tell you that more often than not, individuals who don't want to go to jail know that if they're going to commit the type of crime that's going to lead them to jail, that they're typically going to make sure that their life doesn't make it to trial. They typically try to end it on the street. They typically don't let it get to the jailhouse. They're the ones that got gunned down and end up on the 6 o'clock news. And but if you know that jail is not your friend, you probably would avoid doing something that will get yourself arrested. He said, social economics, throw me the ball, I'm debt free. Passive income, especially passive income. Yes. Now, main topic, under the new rules, states that can't afford these massive new costs will be forced to either cut the number of people in the program or reduce the benefits. Now, more often than not, people who are marginally on the program for whatever reason, who do not quite qualify for the program, might see a stop in their services. However, the large majority of the program will have an adjustment, and you will start seeing it. For those of you that are seeing that $300 a month on your Snap card, you're probably not going to see that much sooner. Coming soon, you're probably going to start seeing 250 or 175, and it's going to be, they're going to give everybody a notice that, hey, coming soon, that you're not going to get the full ride. You're going to start getting $50, $75, or $100 less. And that means that whatever's not covered on your food stamp card, you are going to have to make that money somewhere else. Hold on now. He said, just a little joke. Now, you were just talking about unsubscribing to my channel because you thought that I was getting involved in the Epstein's list. Now you're going to tell me a joke. If you will, politics are a joke, and democracy is dead. So let's all party instead. Well, that's not a joke. That's more of a reality. One of the things that I was wild about was like, hold on, why are the Democrats pissed off when all the poor people are about to benefit in the short term? But then I looked at the rest of the bill and I was like, oh shit, this is about to suck. Because all of the benefits that were supposed to be being given to the poor people is going to be offset by the lack of taxation to the poor people. But that's because the largest majority of the country is paid for by the poor people, because there's only 1% of rich people, 23% of individuals that are making more than $100,000 a year, and the rest of the other 77% of Americans are poor as fuck. So if you look at it that way, oh, I forgive you. I forgive you. Here on this, that, and everything in between. I don't hold grudges to nobody, and I do not care if people disagree with me, but I am not a podcast that is hate speech, and I am not a podcast that is going to take shots at anybody specifically. I talk about the facts as I get them, and I ultimately don't have much of an opinion. My opinion is that if it doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense. And if it is supposed to apply, it should apply uniformly. So my position is never going to come from an ethical or moral standard. And that's why you probably had a hard stance originally, because my position is never going to come from an ethical or moral standard. And the reason why is because ethics and morals are arbitrarily subjective. The fact is that it's right when the group says it's right, and it's wrong when the group says it's wrong. But favoritism comes into play, and certain people it doesn't apply to, and it's only right in certain conditions, but the exact same action is wrong in other conditions. Morals and ethics are flaky. Uniformity is what I go by, where if it's supposed to be that way, it's always supposed to be that way. It doesn't matter if you're rich. It doesn't matter if you're poor. It doesn't matter if you're white or black, male or female, American, non-American, immigrant, undocumented. If that's the way it's supposed to be, that's the way it's always supposed to be. So if I'm supposed to get pistol whipped on a street corner, Donald Trump is supposed to get pistol whipped on a street corner, because that's uniformity. But if in any scenario, if one individual is not supposed to get treated that way, nobody's supposed to get treated that way. And if that is the fact that subjectively certain individuals are not being mistreated and other individuals are being mistreated, that's when I say, hey, this doesn't make sense. That's my stance. So, I don't take offense to your original, because you thought that I was going to say, oh yeah, no. The celebrities. Nope. I'm not that guy. EBT or the corner. Yeah, they're going to be throwing us out, bro, with the EBT. So I see books, a little poster or books, love to read. Look, I do a good job with reading majority of this information before I bring it to you. And that's one of the reasons why when I come to you guys, I come to you guys with facts, and I come to you guys from an alternative perspective in comparison to the other news podcasts or other live podcasts that actually talks about this stuff, because they'll come from a deep rooted either Republican or Democratic position, and they're only going to talk about it from their political side. I do not necessarily have a political side. While I do have Democratic on my voters registration card because I had to pick one when I was younger and didn't know any better, I have learned over 20 years ago that it is more effective to pay attention to the policies and how they will directly impact me when they get enforced, and then vote on the policies, not on the person. And that's not what we typically do in this country. We typically vote on the person popularity contest. I'm a vote for him because I like him, not because his policies benefit me. More than 70% of Americans voted for Donald Trump. There's about 15% of Americans that are LGBTQ community. Donald Trump is attacking LGBTQ community. And then we have a problem with the fact that 50%, 49.9% of Americans are male. Women are pissed off because of the abortion laws. But if 70% or more of Americans voted for Trump, then that means women voted for Trump. I can't say that 100% of the 15% of Americans voted for Kamala Harris, but I can say that the Republicans voted for Republican and the Republican LGBTQ community voted for Donald Trump. So the women and the LGBT community that is pissed off that Donald Trump is in office needs to be pissed off at the women who voted for Trump and the LGBTQ community that voted for Trump, because that's the reason why Kamala Harris did not give the black people from 1965 and before $1 million for being black, because she didn't get voted in because too many of y'all voted for Trump. But y'all hating women are treating men like shit when women voted the man in. I don't understand that. Y'all shaving y'all heads and treating men like shit because y'all can't have abortions, but y'all only need to have an abortion if you're being irresponsible. Ask me about that. That's a whole nother conversation. We made a mistake. Hitler 1934. I don't know if they made a mistake. I know Hitler didn't finish the job. I don't know if they made a mistake. I don't think they went the right way with that particular agenda, because natural selection was not involved with his decision-making process. But I can say that bad choices always have some sort of way of working itself out. Someone will always be mad no matter who is online, who is in office. Oh, of course. Everybody was mad at Biden. And that's why I talk about what Biden did, because people hate Joe Biden. But everybody who has a marketplace insurance policy appreciate Joe Biden. Everybody who's about to get on a marketplace insurance policy appreciate Joe Biden, because first of all, Barack Obama started it with the Obamacare, and then Biden emphasized the marketplace scenario. If all he could do was that marketplace scenario, that marketplace scenario is going to benefit you right now with the Medicare being cut down by Donald Trump. Think about that. So while you say that Biden ain't do squat, a lot of people said Obama didn't do squat. But in 2008, if your ass was going to college, Biden or Obama was pushing for college education. Donald Trump has put a stop to the debt relief programs that Obama was doing. So y'all got debt from way back when that y'all was supposed to write off. Coming soon, y'all not gonna be able to write that shit off. Y'all not, he's saying Biden who and Obama who. Exactly. So, when they were here, they did do something and it impacted some people. But if you weren't a college student, Obama wasn't for you. If you did not need good health insurance that you did not have to pay for, Biden wasn't for you. You say college should be free if you pass. College should be free, period. College should be free, period. I'm going to be honest with you. The transition of knowledge from generation to generation was supposed to be common knowledge, and it is supposed to be passed on from the last generation to the next generation, especially trade schools, because you're learning skills. This stuff should be free, but it's not. They privatize it and they make money off of it because people, what they did was big business said, you have to have this piece of paper in order for me to employ you. The schools say, well, you can't get that piece of paper if you don't pay me for it. Now, all of the stuff that you can learn from school, which does not have real world application a lot of the times in your workforce. You could learn from a private tutor. You could learn from a mentorship. You could learn from somebody who's already in the field, either for free or pay less for it. But you go to this university to get that piece of paper. That's crazy. Now, we were talking about schools before. People start off chasing down prestige. And that's one of the things that I tell you guys about branding. If you're buying the brand, you're overpaying for the same product that you could have got for less money. Name brand clothes, name brand shoes, name brand stuff. You're buying the brand. The quality is not better. It's just that item is more popular. Same thing goes to the education systems. The schools that have the most prestige, like Harvard, just started this year giving free education for any household under $200,000 a year. Harvard was one of the top 3 major universities in the United States for generations. And they just started making their doors free to incomes under $200,000 a year. Still, you got to have a pretty good GPA to get in there because it's a highly competitive school. But at least your family doesn't have to be semi-rich in order to get in there. But the thing about it is, though, starting with, it's a prestige. The person who graduated from the school went somewhere and became famous. And because of that, this school is famous. So Martin Luther King used to go here. Harriet Tubman used to go here. LeBron James used to go here. So this school is the school you want to go to, because if you want to be like them, you got to come to my university. Prestige. But did you know some of the best lawyers in this country, some of the best doctors in this country came out of a fucking community college? Politicians are groomed. These are individuals who don't necessarily have to have a college education. They just got to have a politician in their family and get a boost. If they're sponsored by somebody who is reputable in politics, they'll start off with a political position, and then they'll work their way up in their political position through effort. Not because they did 10 years of law school and got 3 degrees, but because they knew somebody who was already in the business and they got a referral. Most of the millionaires did not go to college. Most millionaires don't have, 7, 8 degrees. A lot of the rappers that were millionaires first went back and got a degree for the sake of doing it. But did they go to college so that they could be singers? Athletes go to college so that they could get picked up by the league. They're career students, but they didn't go to college because they wanted to be smart. They went to college to get an athletic scholarship so that they could get picked up by the athletic department so that they could go to the pros. But if they could get into the pros without going to college, they would go straight to the pros without going to college. Roger said Obamacare sucked. Remember the fine of $750 per child when you couldn't afford it? I paid $1,500 for 2 kids, single dad. Bro, Obamacare was the worst thing but it was bad and it was good. He punished people for not having any insurance to force them on insurance. so that everybody would have health insurance. Because the truth is that if everybody does have health coverage, they would be able to have better health, which would extend their life. You think, markets who change. Oh, you think the markets who change? Well, I don't know everything about the market. I just know that the marketplace health coverage provides you with health care, and Biden provides you with $1,500 a year discount on your marketplace policy. So if you go to marketplace, you'll benefit from that. Michael says, my nursing degree, my CDL license, all free. That would be fun. You can actually get a CDL license for little or nothing, especially if you work for the company through a contract. I buy from estate sales and garden sales, no tariffs. That's a good way to do it. School tycoons. Well, think about this. When we start talking about school tycoons, special shout out to Cody. It's been a while since you've been here. One of the things you got to think about with the schools, we put a bunch of money into prestige. So we pay for private schools, right? And I tell you guys this every month. The $1,500 to $3,000 a semester that you're paying for private school, you could be paying that exact same amount of money to public school and get the same kind of education. Some people are going to say, no, that's not true. Yes, it is. If every parent that is in a private school scenario takes their money and puts it into a public school, you get two things. You get the same budget for the public school that you would have had for the private school, which means the school has enough resources to give your kid top quality education. But because it is a nonprofit government entity, because the government gives money to the school spends it. The school doesn't turn a profit. All of the money that you give to that school, you can get a receipt for, and then you can take that money and claim it on your taxes and get a tax deduction. So instead of getting $3,000 of debt to a private school, it's a $3,000 tax deduction for a public school. And the public school is going to show your child more respect because you don't have to give that money to the public school, but you have to give that money to the private school. Private school is going to talk to you like shit. And then if your kid act up, they're going to demand that you give them more money to keep your kid in the school so that they can expand the wing, buy themselves a new Porsche or some other shit. But the public school, you fuck around and buy a new basketball court for them motherfuckers. At public school is much needed. He says, most millionaires do not have college degrees. You're right. Most millionaires don't. They don't need it. Most millionaires, they have a financial advisor. They're groomed from childhood on how to behave. They're taught about networking, socializing. They do meet and greets, soirees. They learn how to talk deal, which is different from talking business. They talk deal. They leverage what they have to get what they want. They leverage who they know to get what they want. Just wear a black square on your head every day. Well, I mean, if it makes you feel better, yeah, you could. Oh, I'm gonna be a PP brain nurse, cap, and teacher, bank, realtor, public worker. Woo! So who really wants to live longer? The longer it's just come more. Private school is better. Private school is subjectively better, specifically because it's based on prestige. They have the same conflicts in private schools that they have in public schools. Most recently, the school shootings have been in private schools, not so much in public schools. The claims of abuse on the children have been more readily seen in the private schools than in the public schools. The children are not getting the taste slapped out of their mouths in public school because it is socially unacceptable. However, private schools across, I do believe, at least 19 states in the United States that still allow corporal punishment, still administer discipline in the public, in the private school. So while your kid don't get his ass whooped in a public school, he could get his ass whooped in a private school. Discipline is discipline, but because you pay for your kid to be there, you're going to be a little bit more flexible as to what is allowed to happen to your kid in that school because you have to pay for your kid to be there. It's not a choice. When you choose to pay for your kid to be there and the school has incorporated your regular donations to the school as part of their budget, they're going to kiss your ass and do whatever they can to please your child because you are supporting a system that otherwise normally does not get supported. Now, when every American starts putting their money into a public school, the public school is going to outdo the private schools because there are more kids in public schools than in private schools. There's more parents over public schools than private schools. But you're not getting that much of a better education. The only difference that you can honestly say is that because the budget of a private school is higher than the budget of a public school, is that the resources are more updated, specifically because the school has enough money to do it. But there is no difference in the teachers, and there's no difference in the students. So if you take the money out the private school, put it into a public school, use it as a tax deduction, the same quantity of education could come out of that same public school. And if you could get better quality teachers for higher pay, you could do that because the budget would be higher. Because the government gives a limited quantity of money to the schools. And since the Department of Education has been dismantled this year, you're going to have less individuals operating the budget for the schools. So if you want your kid to get a good education, you're paying to this. But a lot of people who got their kids in public school can't even afford to feed their kids. So they're not trying to donate money to the school because they can't pay their bills while their kid is getting free lunch at the school because the school is being used as a babysitter, not as an education source. It's a free babysitter. So there's a larger problem at hand there. But the fact is that if you had the money to pay for private, you should just invest it into public. Plain and simple. I don't have children, but I pay for most of your kids' school for my taxes. That's a fact, bro. That's a fact. Now, CBO calculates that about 3 to 4.7 million people will lose their SNAP benefits as a result of what's about to change. And this means families who have relied on the assistance may suddenly find themselves with less support or no support at all. Since SNAP benefits are proven to reduce food insecurity by about 30%, these cuts are expected to have a severe impact. And it's the system forcing a choice between funding tax deductions and funding basic nutrition. So the final consequences of this bill is how it redraws the lines in the American economy, creating a profound gap between those it helps and those it hurts, while sending damaging ripples through the entire communities. The thing is that while, yeah, the lower income individuals are going to save substantially large quantities of money on their taxes, they're going to be paying for a lot more shit. The poor people are still going to be negatively impacted because if you're not able to have food stamps, which used to cover a large quantity of the food in your household, but you're making more money on your taxes, and food stamps is not taxed. So if you use your SNAP, you're not getting taxed on the food. The exact same food, if you use your food stamp, if you buy that food with cash or credit, you're taxed on it. So yeah, you're going to get more money back on your tax return, but if you don't hold that money for your food bill, you're still going to be struggling to pay for your kids if you waste your money on frivolous things. So you're going to have to reassess your budget, and inflation is still happening. So food is still going up in price. The only difference is that it's not going up as much as it was going up last month. So the money that you're going to get back in March of 2026 may not offset the $2,500 a year increase that you're going to be spending on the inflation of the tariffs worldwide. Do teachers have to do CEUs, can't educate units each year? No, that's not, from what I understand, a mandatory. I believe that that type of requirement is for medical staff, nursing, doctors, stuff like that they have to continue to go to college to maintain their level of updated knowledge in the medical field. But as for teachers typically go to school, work as teachers in lower income environments for the debt relief, which Trump is doing away with. So you used to be able to do 5 or 10 years in a public school or something like that as a teacher, and they would absolve you of your debt. That's not necessarily going to be a thing anymore. Smoke more pot, Be happy. Don't worry. Be happy. No, I disagree, bro. You're not supposed to smoke your product. What your boy said back in the day, don't sample the merchandise. You're supposed to grow it in your backyard, which is why buying a house is good with 2 to 3 acres of property, especially in a distribution state. Use that 2 acres of property to grow and then sell it to a manufacturer who can then put it into a dispensary, and then you can make money off of your crop. Now, if you make enough where you can smoke some and still sell the rest and you still got some left over, then you smoke more pot. But if you've got a limited supply, if you don't get one of those hydroponic systems, because they've got those like for $100,000 a pop, you can get a hydroponic system that's like a shipping container, and you could probably put 8 of those on an acre of land, which produces 10 times more crop, which allows you to mass produce cannabis or hemp over an extended period of distribution. You have to establish your own distribution chain. Small SBA loans will provide you with loans if you got a credit score of 650 or higher, and you can produce whatever you need to produce to establish those, and then just expand on your profits. Where a hydroponic system might run you 1 to 3 months instead of 6 months to grow your crop. And then it is a scenario where it will mass produce 10 times more crop for less area. So you can get a $150,000 loan, buy you a $100,000 hydroponic system, $50,000 to set everything up and get your business going, and then take the crop, and every season you're selling the crop and taking the profits, putting money on a loan, and then taking the difference and buying you an extra container and expanding on the property. And since you own the property, you ain't got to worry about nothing. Some farmland. He said, that's why I became a driver. Yeah, I like to drive, but I like to drive for fun. I don't like to drive for work. That was exhausting when I used to do that. Grow it outdoors. Yeah, you can grow it outdoors. What's a credit score? I use cash. Well, you use cash because you don't need credit, but a credit score is if you have a business, the Dun and Bradstreet has a credit score for you, and that's usually the listing from the Better Business Bureau. And what happens is that is your trade worthiness, which means that people will lend you money based on your credit. And that allows you to get fronted merchandise for the value of the merchandise, and then you you give them the money down the line after you've made the money. It was established way long ago. I covered that story a long time ago, back when they had first created the calendar, and that was how they kept track of people's trade worthiness back in the Roman days, and that led to the credit score. Putting the money into land. Yeah, you can put money into land. If you buy land, if you buy a land, turn it into a land trust and lease the land out. Like, for example, if you buy a house, subjugate the land, have a restricted deed where they own the house itself, but they're leasing the land, you can buy a house for $250,000 or $500,000. Then you can subjugate the house from the land, sell the house to the owner, and then have them rent the land for like $100 a month for the rest of their life. So you still get, you get the $250,000 for the house and still get $100 a month off the land for the remainder of the existence of the land. And they have to maintenance the land. That's crazy. 13 months to a year at 28% interest. That's decent. Using credit cards. Oh yeah, that's a lot of interest if you're paying it. If you're getting it, that's decent. If you got to pay it, that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. It makes no sense. You're right. You don't want to. Well, if you're getting a credit card at 28%, because see, the SBA loans are between 8 and 14%. So if you're getting between $50,000 and $150,000 loan between 8 to 14% interest, that's a pretty decent amount. And right now, with the dividend rotation strategy, we're getting between 22 and 168% interest on it. So we would, on the low end, be making like 7% interest, roughly, of profit off of borrowing $50,000 to $150,000 from the SBA if we had good credit. So we could literally get an SBA loan, have a really good business plan, get an SBA loan, take the money, put it into the stock market, flip the money in the stock market, take the profits from the stock market, and pay off the loan. You really could do that, because on paper, they're going to give you the money for what you intended to do with the money, as long as you're not claiming that you're going to use it for real estate investments. If you're going to build something, they don't really want to see that. If you're going to expand on the operation or something like that, then they would give you money for that. So, that kind of helps. But the fact is, if you said that you were going to do it for something, they give you the cash, you go do something else with it. As long as you pay them back, they don't really give a shit. They're not going to say, oh, no, I didn't tell you that you could use the money for this and then take it back from you. No, they're going to say, well, I gave it to you, so whatever you use it for, you got, as long as you pay me back, we're good. Now, if you pay them back the first time, then when you go back and ask them for another loan, they're not going to tell you no, because you got credit with them because you've borrowed money before. What about the interest from the loan? Okay, so when you borrow from the establishment, the loan is going to be incorporated in the payments, just like in a car loan. And what's going to happen is that if you put the money in a stock option and the stocks are paying off the loan, meaning that the profits from the stock, you'll deposit it into your bank account, then take the money that you deposit into the bank account and put it on the loan. Then the loan, whatever the notes are for the loan, you're going to pay that with the dividends from the stock option. Two things, you're going to claim that on your taxes because you have a loan and the stocks are paying for that loan. So the profits off of the stock is covering a debt. So you didn't turn a profit. So on paper, you're not being taxed for the profits off of the loan. But if you put 50 to 150 grand into the stocks and then you get that money off of the stocks and you put that on the loan itself, the loan and the interest gets paid off. So when the debt is paid off, the loan is paid off too. The interest and the principal is paid off, but you keep the 50 something grand that's in the stocks. So that's how that works. Banks are there just to take your money. Yes, they are, and create more debt. Yes, because they make money off of you spending money. Capitalization. Capitalism is based off of capitalizing off of the innocent, the weak, and the elderly. Well, the stupid, the ignorant. The stupid, the innocent, the weak, and the elderly. So if you make dumb decisions, somebody's going to profit off of it. If you're too weak to do stuff, then you're going to pay somebody to do it for you. If you're too old to do stuff, you're too feeble to do stuff, you're going to pay somebody else to do it. These are the ways that capitalism works. Somebody's making a mistake, wrong decision, and then capitalize off of it. I'm not taking financial advice from a guy green screening a fake library and wearing sunglasses at 3 a.m. in the morning. Well, that's fantastic because there's no green screen over here. But if you're not going to take any financial advice, I'm not a financial advisor, so I can give two shits if you take any advice from me. We were not actually talking about, well, actually, I have been talking about ways that you can improve yourselves. What I tell you to do is for you to take the information that I give you, go research it, and then if you confirm the information to be beneficial to you, then you utilize it. But if you decide not to, then I don't really care. I use the information that I benefit from, and as Michael says, knowledge is power. So if you know that there's information out there that you weren't aware of before, you don't have to take my word for it. Just because I mentioned it, the same way we would have had this conversation at the water cooler at the job, or if we would have been talking about this in passing while we were waiting on the bus or standing there waiting for an elevator or something, you could take that information, go do your own research, Google it yourself, and then confirm if what I'm telling you is true. If it is and you want to use it, use it. If not, then you don't. But you never would have thought about it if you would not have come to this podcast when I was talking about it. That's the point. He said, as the sticks crash, which happens. Yeah, that's true. You should stick to what you know. Best like virginity. I actually do. That's exactly why we're talking about what we're talking about right now, Crust. We talk about exactly what we know, which is how to make, save, and invest money, how to make better decisions, and how to pay attention to what's going on in society so that we can change the way we do things based on the changes in society. Paying Paul for Mary's account. I don't like paying for Mary's account. This is a new age. Mary should pay for my account. And then we have special shout out for Emilio. Emilio's going to tell me, wow, we just did 3 hours and 30 minutes. It's one of the longer shows. Sunglasses indoors. Yes. That is what happens when you have prescription glasses. You wear glasses that are, those nails are crazy. Well, if you're paying attention to my nails instead of paying attention to the information, then you're doing something wrong, because you're supposed to be paying attention to, and then you can't even really see. I have to put my fingers into but these are natural, ladies. So these nails are not glued on at $150, $250 for 2 weeks. Long story short, the winners are clear. What? Oh no, yo ass just got here. For you to say I ain't said nothing, yo ass just got here. We did have thousands of people on the show tonight. Yo ass just got here. The winner is clear. The middle class family with 2 kids gets a $2,500 credit boost. Anybody under that is going to get that. Retirees see their tax bill on Social Security disappear because they're not going to be getting taxed anymore if they were getting taxed. A high earning bartender pockets thousands more dollars in tips in comparison to before. A construction worker buying a new American made truck gets a larger deduction on the loan interest, but the bills create a vast group of losers. And tragically, they are often the same people or their neighbors. So the very same family that gets the benefit from child credits might also lose their Medicare and their food stamps. Low-income seniors who wasn't paying for federal Social Security anyway also might lose their SNAP and their Medicaid insurance. The CBO, and a SNAP is essential for their groceries because they're on a fixed income. The CBO found that while many households see a gain, the poorest could lose thousands a year in the essential support. So this dynamic creates a massive shock to state and local economies, where the bill doesn't just cut federal programs, it poses huge new costs on states, forcing them to either raise taxes, state taxes, where federal taxes has gone down, but state taxes has gone up, or cut the services like education and infrastructure. Now, we can fix education, like I told you, by donating to your local public school and then using that donation as a federal tax deduction. But that doesn't help the rest of the infrastructure. The combined cuts to Medicaid and SNAP are estimated to remove over $1.1 trillion from the economy over 10 years. And this money families would have to spend at local grocery stores and pharmacies. Economists call this multiplier effect. Every dollar in SNAP benefits generates up to $1.80 in economic activity. By cutting that funding, you're not just hurting families, you're shrinking the economy for everyone. Because if less people have, hold on, he said, this Macy's fit ain't fooling. Pointing proud of this is crazy. Okay, so I really appreciate you coming, Emilio. This new law is a fundamental rewriting of the American system of taxes and benefits. And we've seen how it delivers massive tax cuts for families through a permanent and expanded child tax credit, and for seniors by making Social Security benefits tax-free. But we've seen the new pay raises for tipped and overtime workers and the new incentives to buy American-made cars. But we've also seen the devastating catch that pays for all of it. Deep structural cuts, the healthcare and food assistance programs that serves tens of millions of Americans. We've broken down the impossible choice this forces on families who may gain the tax break only to lose essential benefits somewhere else. And finally, we looked at how these changes are set to widen the economic divide and send damaging ripples through the state's economy. This law is massive, and it's in its experimental phase. It wants to reward families, seniors, and workers with significant tax relief, but it does so at the expense of the nation's most vulnerable. Because ultimately, the poor will get poorer while the rich get richer. It is going to redevelop more of a middle class at the expense of the lower class. Michael said, remember to like and subscribe and have a good night. I really appreciate that, Michael. Thank you so much. I'm going to see you again. The financial world you'll be navigating is different now. So understanding these changes is the first most important step you can make. And the government has laid new foundations, but it's one that leaves millions of Americans on shakier ground than ever before. This is actually going to impact your ability to invest in certain things, because while you can invest in more American manufacturers for vehicles, those people who were investing in consumer markets, produce and other such things, if you know that the food market is about to take a big hit because SNAP is not going to be there, you're going to end up pulling out of the food market. Those individuals that are investing in healthcare in the insurance market, knowing that the insurance market is about to shift, you might redirect your capital while the market is high so that when it tanks, you can buy back in. These are the changes that you make because of what just happened with the bill. Whether or not it takes food off of your table is about as impactful as whether or not your light bill went up because Canada taxed America 25%. Doesn't change the fact that you could probably make some money somewhere else off of something else if you're investing in the right thing. So I want to hear from you guys. Which of these changes is going to affect you the most? Do you think this law is a fair trade-off? Let me know on the comments down below or off to the side, depending on which device you watch me from. That's all I got for you guys for tonight. This was a very extensive show. I wasn't expecting it to go this long, but I'm actually glad that it did. I really appreciate you guys for coming to tonight's show. Remember that we're live 7 nights a week. You're going to see us come here tomorrow. We're going to have more information about how to assess our financial wealth. So I really appreciate you guys for coming to tonight's show. We're going to be continuing to rotate out the stock options, because if you guys pay attention to the stock market, we have a large quantity of stocks that we're going through with our dividend rotation strategy. I'm going to be reminding you of which stocks to invest in throughout the month, throughout the year, so that you guys can benefit from that if you wish to get into that. In the meantime, since we're live 7 nights a week and we never let the sun rise without going live so far, remember that we are a male-driven podcast from the male's perspective, but ladies, we provide information that y'all can benefit from too. So fellas, take the information or don't, but I recommend that you take it, because over 30% of the females that's coming to this channel is learning about ways to make and invest and save money and make themselves better individuals. And they're going to be more driven than we are because we're distracted by lust. So if you're looking for a higher value woman, you have to improve yourself financially as well as improving your character, personality, and decision-making process. So, because you could be rich and stupid at the same time. You have to be tactful about this. You want to focus on increasing your characteristics alongside your financial status, improving your decision-making power alongside your money-making power. This makes you an overall total package of a higher valued individual, and we're going to work towards that together. Ladies, as long as the situation doesn't make sense, I'm going to keep asking you ladies to make it make sense. So ladies, please make it make sense. Fellas, I really appreciate y'all for coming to the show. Those of you that were reasonably appropriate, I really appreciate you guys for sticking around. I want to thank you guys for coming to This and That, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between. And I'm going to see you guys tomorrow night.
Chase validation, now I validate That's my personal command. I'm not mounted on higher ground where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds, raising the bar, breaking ground. I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision, cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield to mediocrity and chaos. I will never I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision, cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield to mediocrity and chaos. I will never yield.